Chapter 377. Chu Xiu sat with Mr. Liu and waited. He was also observing the demonic Dao warriors in the hall. Compared to the Bright Demon Clan, the Hidden Demon Clan was indeed much shabbier. There were very few big forces like the Phaseless Demon Sect. Most of them were small forces of 2s and 3s. Although their high-end forces were not weak, they could not be gathered to a large scale. Thus, Mr. Liu did not give Chu Xiu too much of an introduction. However, this did not mean that the Hidden Demon Clan was weak. The Hidden Demon Clan was called the Hidden Demon Clan when they hid in the dark. Before they truly surfaced, who knew how strong the Hidden Demon Clan was? Take Chu Xiu for example. Although he was the successor of the demonic Dao, his original identity was not weak. The Hidden Demon Clan members present were the same. Perhaps they had some status in the Jianghu. And the most important thing was that there were many old monsters like Wuxia who dared to fight against the righteous sects in the Hidden Devil Clan. Who knew whether those famous diabolism tycoons were dead or still hiding in the dark? The crowd waited for less than an hour. At this time, the people from the Rakshasa sect and the Omniscient sect also arrived. The Rakshasa sect was located in the far west desert, close to the western region. All the disciples of the Rakshasa sect wore a mask of a demon. Legend had it that because of their cultivation method, their appearance was like a demon. There was no difference between wearing a mask and not wearing one. However, the people from the Omniscient sect were a little strange. There were two people from the Omniscient sect. One was at the Unity of Heaven and Man realm, and the other was at the Five Chi's origin realm. Normally, if there were martial artists at the Unity of Heaven and Man realm among the people who came, the former would definitely be the leader. However, the people from the Omniscient sect seemed to be the opposite. They actually respected the young man at the Five Chi's origin realm. When they entered, the young man walked in front. There was only one seat for each force. The young man directly sat on the seat of the Omniscient sect. The martial artist at the Unity of Heaven and Man realm stood to the side like a follower. Seeing this, everyone present frowned and looked at the young man from the Omniscient sect. The young man had a masculine and handsome appearance. He wore a loose black robe, and one could vaguely see a ferocious blood-red dragon tattoo on his chest. He also held a blood-red dragon spear in his hand, looking incomparably ferocious. A martial artist at the Unity of Heaven and Man realm would be considered an expert no matter where he went. He was the backbone of a force. Even if the Xiahou clan was one of the 9 great clans, and the 7th uncle was just a guest of the Xiahou clan, Xiahou Wujiang still had to obediently address the 7th uncle as an elder and be very polite to him. But now, this young man from the extreme evil sect was treating a cultivator at the one with the world stage as a follower. Wasn't this a little too unruly? Who was this kid? Could he be the son of the sect master of the extreme evil sect? Someone from the Hidden Devil lineage immediately mocked. Your extreme evil sect is getting worse and worse. You don't even know the difference between superiors and inferiors. You have a martial artist at the one with the heaven stage, but you've sent a martial artist at the 5 Chis returning to the origin stage to sit there. What, do you think this demonic Dao conference is a game? Mr. Liu transmitted his voice to Chu Xiu's ear. This person is Jiang Zong, the disciple of the Scarlet Drill Demonic Sect's sect master. The Scarlet Drill Demonic Sect was a large sect in the Hidden Devil lineage in the early years, but now it has been suppressed beyond recognition. I estimate that there are only 100 people in the entire sect. Before the person from the extreme evil sect could speak, Chou Xiangzi sneered and said, if that kid from your Hidden Devil lineage can sit there with the 5 Chis returning to the origin stage, why can't my Bright Devil lineage do the same? Although Chou Xiangzi had suffered a loss at the hands of Chu Xiu, it wasn't a serious injury. He had already recovered, and his appearance had also returned to his previous handsome and devilish appearance. Jia Yingzong sneered and said, Chou Xiangzi, you still have the nerve to speak? So what if it's the 5 Chis returning to the origin stage? Who was the one who was humiliated by little brother Lin Yi just now? If you have the nerve to sit here, he naturally has the right to do so as well. However, what right does this kid from the extreme evil sect have? The extreme evil sect wasn't very strong among the Bright Devil lineage. Moreover, they had really relied on admitting defeat to the orthodox sects in exchange for a chance of survival. This kind of humiliation couldn't be washed away no matter how hard they tried. Therefore, even among the Bright Devil lineage, the extreme evil sect didn't have a good reputation and was always ridiculed. According to Jiang Zong's knowledge, the extreme evil sect didn't have a single outstanding person in recent years. Previously, the extreme evil sect seemed to have recruited a new devil cultivator, Tong Kai Tai. That guy was inexperienced and didn't understand the situation, so he really joined the extreme evil sect. In the end, not long after he jumped out, he was slaughtered by Chu Xiao of the Guanzhong torture room. This caused the other devil sects to secretly ridicule the extreme evil sect. They mocked the extreme evil sect for being unable to nurture a young expert. It wasn't easy for them to recruit one, but it was a short-lived ghost. This was why Jiaringzong was so presumptuous and ridiculing the extreme evil sect now. Of course, the deeper reason was that the Scarlet Drill Demon sect had an old grudge with the extreme evil sect. The grudge between the Bright Devil lineage and the Hidden Devil lineage was no less than that of the Orthodox sections. This time, if it wasn't for the Sixth Demon sect acting as a middleman, they would probably have to fight it out first to determine the outcome. The Unity of Heaven and Man realm martial artist from the extreme evil sect revealed a trace of anger on his face. Just as he was about to make a move, the young man had already stood up lazily. Holding the blood-colored dragon spear in his hand, he said plainly, "You ask me why I'm sitting here? I'm not good with words, and it's too troublesome to explain. The blood dragon in my hand will tell you the answer." "Oh right, I'm not that kid. I'm Yi Tianxia. Extreme evil sect's Yi Tianxia." Jiaringzong sneered disdainfully and said, "Never heard of you." Yi Tianxia dragged the blood-colored dragon spear on the ground. His eyes strangely turned vertical, and the color of his eyes turned scarlet, like some kind of snake. "You will remember this in the future." As soon as he finished speaking, Yi Tianxia's figure turned into a blood-colored ray of light and attacked Jiaringzong. The dragon on the blood-colored dragon spear roared, and in an instant, the dragon's aura shook the sky. Jiaringzong brandished the scarlet long saber in his hand, and the blood-red light condensed into a towering saber light that slashed horizontally. A similarly powerful aura erupted, and it was incomparably sharp. There were also traces of black qi within it, which was the poisonous corpse qi. The martial arts of the Scarlet Drill Demon sect mainly focused on condensing the incomparably ferocious blood qi and the strange corpse qi to attack the enemy. Its power was not weak at all. However, Yi Tianxia's spear did not seem to be special in any way. The only special thing was that the power of his spear was really strong, and it was not weaker than the power of a Unity of Heaven and Man realm martial artist. He had the right to sit there. However, the moment Yi Tianxia struck with his spear, Wei Shuya, who was originally sleepy, suddenly opened his eyes. A frightening ray of light appeared in his old and muddy eyes. With a loud bang, the scarlet spear radiance collided with the scarlet saber radiance, causing a violent shockwave to erupt. Something unexpected happened. Jiaringzong's saber radiance was shattered, completely suppressed by Yi Tianxia in terms of power. The scarlet dragon spear in Yi Tianxia's hand smashed down like a heavy hammer. The powerful aura was like Mount Tai, and it directly hit Jiaringzong, causing him to vomit blood and retreat. The ground under his feet cracked inch by inch. At this moment, everyone finally understood that there was indeed nothing special about Yi Tianxia's martial arts. The only thing special about him was his power. God knows how he, a martial artist at the Five Chi's origin realm, managed to cultivate to this level of power. Even among the Unity of Heaven and Man realm martial artists, there were not many who could be on par with him. Yi Tianxia had no intention of stopping after making Jiaringzong vomit blood in just 2 moves. The blood dragon in his hand flew out, and the long spear seemed to have come to life. It twisted and danced in the air, and it really looked like a dragon that was about to devour someone. It stabbed toward Jiaringzong. Jiaringzong roared, and the long saber in his hand suddenly disintegrated. Countless scarlet saber light merged into it, and the saber slashed down, and Yi Tianxia's spear missed its target. However, whether it was a coincidence or on purpose, the moment the long spear missed its target, a scarlet gang qi suddenly erupted, and it actually went straight for Chu Xiao. A cold light flashed in Chu Xiao's eyes. This Yi Tianxia of the omniscient sect was really arrogant to the extreme. If Jiaringzong was not enough to establish his dominance, did he want to use me as well? At that moment, Chu Xiao's eyes burst with a bright light, and he displayed the heaven sun gazing at air technique. The trajectory of the spear was clearly visible in Chu Xiao's eyes. When the blood dragon spear was about to reach him, Chu Xiao took a step forward, and his figure casually dodged the spear. His palm turned into a saber, and the surging devil qi condensed in Chu Xiao's palm. He directly slashed down with the saber, and the spear was directly sent flying back toward Yi Tianxia. Everyone present could even hear the howling of a beast coming from the long spear. The gang qi in Yi Tianxia's hand exploded, and he caught the spear that Chu Xiu had slashed back at him. When they collided, there was a violent explosion of Gang Qi. Although Yi Tianxia did not take a step back, one could imagine how strong Chu Xiu was. Looking at Chu Xiu, Yi Tianxia raised his eyebrows. It seemed that someone had already established his dominance before coming here, and his strength was not weak at all. At this time, Wei Shuya half opened his eyes and said slowly, "You actually refined the Flood Dragon's inner core of the Omniscient sect? It seems that you have also learned the Blood Flood Dragon Heart Sutra?" Impressive. The Omniscient sect has been thinking about this for hundreds of years, and it has actually succeeded in your generation. The young people of the Yinma clan are not weak, and it seems that the Bright Demon clan is not weak either. You have established your dominance. Go back and sit down. The fight is over, and it's time to get down to business. Chapter 378. Wei Shuya immediately revealed Yi Tianxia's origins. This caused the expressions of Yi Tianxia and the unity of the Heaven Realm martial artist from the extreme evil sect to change, but they quickly returned to normal. Their so-called little secrets were not worth mentioning in the eyes of an old antique like Wei Shuya, and he could easily see through them. Everyone present thought for a moment and immediately understood what was going on. The extreme evil sect had not been very strong since its founding, and their cultivation methods were also relatively mediocre. However, a few hundred years ago, the extreme evil sect had accidentally obtained an opportunity. They had dug up the tomb of an ancient powerhouse. However, the commotion at that time had been too great. The Omniscient sect had dug up the tomb, but the Omniscient sect hadn't been able to get anything good out of it. The truly valuable things had all been snatched away by others who had heard the news. The extreme evil sect only obtained two things from that time. One was a blood serpent's core, and the other was the blood serpent's cultivation method, the Blood Serpent Heart Sutra. That's right, it was not a cultivation method for humans, but a cultivation method specifically for vicious beasts to cultivate. This ancient powerhouse was extremely powerful, and he actually kept a blood serpent as a pet. After the blood serpent died, it only left behind a core. Originally, it was possible to refine a vicious beast's core, but the extreme evil sect was not good at alchemy, let alone a high-grade item like the blood serpent's core. They did not feel at ease giving it to others. Therefore, the extreme evil sect master of that generation suddenly had the idea to let his disciples swallow the blood serpent's core. After refining it, they would obtain the bloodline of a flood dragon, and then cultivate the Blood Serpent Heart Sutra. Wouldn't that create a supreme powerhouse? In the end, imagination was beautiful, but reality was cruel. The blood serpent's core was extremely domineering, and it was not something that ordinary people could refine. As for the Blood Serpent Heart Sutra, it was even more so. The meridians of humans were different from vicious beasts, so they specifically researched a cultivation method that was suitable for vicious beasts to cultivate. Conversely, it was impossible for humans to cultivate a cultivation method that was suitable for vicious beasts. After paying with the lives of over 10 young extreme evil sect warriors, the extreme evil sect finally realized how unreliable this matter was. They temporarily put the plan aside and no longer cared about it. Back then, this matter had been laughed at by the martial artists of the Jianghu. They thought that the extreme evil sect was so poor that they had gone crazy and wanted to make humans cultivate a cultivation method for vicious beasts. Who would have thought that the extreme evil sect would actually succeed? Apart from everything else, Yi Tianxia's strength was already extremely terrifying. Not to mention the 5 qis collecting in origin state, there were probably only a few warriors in the oneness of heaven and men state who could be on par with him. After all, it was the power of the flood dragon. In terms of physical strength, the only one who could really go head-to-head with Yi Tianxia was Wisdom King Zhongxian. Now that everyone had arrived, Siddhartha, who had been sitting in the middle without moving, stood up. He looked at the people on both sides and said in a deep voice with a slight Hainan accent, "Everyone, now that everyone is here, it's time to discuss how to organize the World Sword Sect meeting. This is an open scheme from the 5 great sword sects. At present, the experts from the 5 great sword sects must have gathered on Floating Jade Mountain. They must be waiting for us information. We still need to come up with a plan as to how we should handle this matter." Wei Shuya raised his eyelids and said lightly, "The people of the 5 great sword sects bully our demonic path and want to trample on our demonic path's face. What else can we do? One word. Fight." Someone beside him reminded him softly, "Senior Wei, those are 2 words." Wei Shuya rolled his eyes at the other party and released an oppressive aura. The aura of the senile Wei Shuya suddenly became like that of an evil dragon that had just woken up. It was incomparably frightening. The cultivator immediately shrank back and did not dare to say anything else. Moon-worshipping cult's god Shaman Mountain Ghost also nodded expressionlessly. There's no need to say more about this. We have to fight, but how should we fight? Aren't we just courting death by charging forward stupidly like this? Cho Xiangzi immediately echoed. Moon-worshipping cult is now the #1 demonic path sect. The cult master's heaven-mending heart sutra has been cultivated to great success. The high priest's illusory demon blood curse can even kill martial arts grandmasters of the same level. It's only appropriate for moon-worshipping cult to lead our demonic path to attack floating Jade Mountain. The Five Venoms cult and moon-worshipping cult were both located in Miaojiang of West Chu. Both sides were from the bright demon lineage. It could be said that the Five Venoms cult respected moon-worshipping cult from the very beginning. It was normal for them to support moon-worshipping cult at a time like this. The other bright demons also expressed their agreement. It was not that they were willing to respect moon-worshipping cult, but for the entire bright demon lineage, it was enough as long as they could take the lead. Mr. Lu sneered, "It's not like we have to listen to whoever is stronger. Moon-worshipping cult is strong. Fine, we won't do anything. We'll just watch moon-worshipping cult deal with the 5 great sword sections. Isn't that more appropriate?" Cho Xiangzi slammed the table and shouted coldly, "Lu Jin, stop bickering. This matter concerns the reputation of our entire demonic path. Stop pestering us endlessly." Mr. Lu retorted, "I'm endlessly pestering you? I'm afraid that someone will abuse their authority for personal gain." As the two quarreled, the rest of the bright demons and hidden demons also began to quarrel with each other. For the bright demons, their combined strength was much stronger than Mr. Lu and the others. Since that was the case, it was only right for them to be in command of the attack on floating Jade Mountain. It would be wrong if it was the other way around. As for the warriors of the Hidden Devil Clan, they were not at ease to hand over the command to the Bright Devil Clan. In the eyes of the hidden demons, the bright demons were traitors. Now that they were handed over to them, would these people still betray them? No one could say for sure. More importantly, who would be in command was a matter of status and face. No one was willing to accept it, so the matter was in a deadlock. No one could do anything to the other. Seeing the two sides quarreling, Mountain Ghost of Moon-worshipping cult waved his hand and said in a low voice, "Stop quarreling. If this goes on, I'm afraid we won't be able to come to a conclusion by the time the World Sword Sect Conference begins. Wei Shuya, the strength of your hidden demons is right there. If you don't let my moon-worshipping cult command this matter, do you want the entire bright demons to listen to you? I know what you're worried about. The past is the past. The destruction of the Kunlun Devil cult was not caused by us. Dugu Weiwei is dead and the Kunlun Devil cult is on the verge of collapse. Do we have to be buried with him and the destruction of the entire demonic path to be worthy of the demonic path? This time, the 5 major sword sects are provoking the entire demonic path. Whether it's my moon-worshipping cult or the entire bright demons, no one will dare to play tricks at this time. You can rest assured." Wei Shuya raised his eyes and looked at Mountain Ghost. He said lightly, "It's fine if you call my name directly, but do you have the right to call Lord Demon Lord's name? Moon-worshipping cult is really getting worse with each generation. With your conduct, do you really think you're the #1 demonic path sect? I know 2 people who inherited the title of Mountain Ghost from your moon-worshipping cult. The first one was blasted into charcoal by the Celestial Master Mansion's Zhang family with thunder because of his foul mouth. The second one's head was smashed by the monks of the Great Light Temple when they were fighting over some goo insect. Those who inherited the title of Mountain Ghost don't live long. If you continue to be so unruly with your mouth, you might not be able to live longer than your 2 seniors." Hearing this, Mountain Ghost's eyes revealed a hint of anger. He said with a gloomy face, "Wei Shuya, don't flaunt your seniority here. In the past, the 5 people of your 9 heavenly mountain raised their flags and courted death. Not only did they die, but they also implicated a group of demonic path martial artists. What seniority do you have to act in front of me?" Wei Shuya's seemingly old body slowly stood up. The aura around him was like that of a sleeping lion that had just woken up. His aura was extremely terrifying, and he was simply suppressed to the extreme. Sidari wanted to say something, but just as he opened his mouth, he shut it again. He stood to the side as if it had nothing to do with him. Mountain Ghost snorted coldly. Wasn't he going to make a move in the end? He had actually been mentally prepared before he came. Jade Face Heavenly Demon, Wuxia was indeed famous. Although Mountain Ghost kept saying that the 5 heavenly demons of the 9 heavenly mountain were courting death, in reality, the 5 of them had really gathered countless demonic path experts with a wave of their arms. It also made the righteous path martial arts world see the power of the demonic path. They were not existences that could be easily provoked. It was better to think carefully before shouting the slogan of exterminating demons and defending the righteous path. From then on, the righteous path's killing of the demonic path had indeed slowed down a lot. Although 4 of the 5 heavenly demons of the 9 heavenly mountain had been killed, the righteous path's martial arts world had also paid a price. No one wanted to force out the 5 heavenly demons again. However, no matter how famous they were, that was more than 200 years ago. In the martial arts world, one should not listen to someone who was older. This was the habit of the righteous path sections. In the demonic path, of course, the one with the bigger fist would listen to the one with the bigger fist. Now, Wuxia was just an old man whose chi and blood had already declined. The moon-worshipping cult's fist was the biggest. The hill ghost's figure suddenly turned into a black mist that lingered around the entire hall. His figure was like a ghost, completely fusing into the mist. Even Siddhartha was unable to detect the hill ghost's tracks. Each of the 9 god magi of the moon-worshipping cult had their own cultivation method inheritance. It was naturally the same for Mountain Ghost. Within the black fog, the faint wails and howls of evil spirits could be heard. It was as if thousands of evil spirits were imprisoned in it. It was extremely terrifying. The black fog shrank, and a deep ghostly aura suddenly erupted, crushing towards Wuxia. However, Wuxia, who was in the black fog, did not change his expression. He only made one move. He stretched out his right hand and slapped in a certain direction. Boundless devil chi surged out of his body and turned into a palm print that was over 100 feet in size. With a single slap, the mountain ghost was sent flying out of the thick ghost fog. The mountain ghost was directly smashed into the ground, creating a human-shaped hole. Chapter 379. Those who could participate in the Demonic Alliance meeting were the core forces of the major sections. Some like Mr. Liu had even taken half a step into the martial Dao Grandmaster realm. Therefore, they had naturally seen real martial Dao Grandmasters fighting before. However, the exchange between Mountain Ghost and Wuxia did not seem like a battle between martial Dao Grandmasters at all. It was a one-sided suppression. Looking at Mountain Ghost, who was vomiting blood in the pit and looked wretched, everyone could not react in time. Mountain Ghost, one of the 9 divine Magispriests, was incredibly powerful when he launched his attack. However, he was slapped by Wuxia, who looked like an old man, and even made him vomit blood. The contrast was way too big. Mountain Ghost clutched his chest in shame and indignation, but at the same time, his eyes flickered with deep horror. This old man was no longer at the martial Dao True Pellet realm, but had stepped into the True Fire Spirit Refinement realm. It was not easy to condense the True Pellet, but it was even more difficult to step into the True Fire Spirit Refinement realm. Most of the martial artists in the pugilistic world would not think that they had reached perfection after stepping into the martial Dao Grandmaster realm. Instead, they would work harder to cultivate because they knew that the road ahead was longer. Due to reverence, they wanted to cross another realm. However, in reality, there was almost no one among the 10 martial Dao Grandmasters who could step into the True Fire Spirit Refinement realm. Wuxia was an old man, and his lifespan was almost depleted. How could he step into the True Fire Spirit Refinement realm? At this moment, Mountain Ghost was cursing the hidden demons for being shameless. If they had known that Wuxia was in the True Fire Spirit Refinement realm, their moon-worshipping cult would have sent the strongest among the 9 great magi, East Emperor Tai, or the High Priest. Siddhartha, who had been silent all this while, finally spoke. Do the two of you really want to turn the Demonic Alliance meeting into a battlefield for internal strife? Since that's the case, let's not discuss attacking Floating Jade Mountain. Let's have an internal strife first. Wuxia said indifferently, I don't want to fight with anyone either, but someone has a foul mouth and deserves to be beaten up. Now, some of the martial artists of my devil path seem to have forgotten their own identities and dare to say anything. There is no longer any awe in their hearts. The Kunlun Devil Cult is indeed unable to represent the Devil Dao, but it can still let the disciples of the Devil Dao know the glory of the past. Why don't you take a look? When have the disciples of the Great Light Temple and Subodhi Monastery ever slandered the ancient Buddhist sect sage Bodhidharma? Who in the Tao sect would dare to slander perfected Lu Chunyang? With your current strength, how dare you look down on the Kunlun devil cult? Wait until you have the strength of the Kunlun devil cult first. Mountain Ghost was furious, but he didn't dare to say anything else. Even though he knew he was no match for the enemy, he still insisted on arguing. That was courting death. Siddhartha put his palms together and sighed. Senior Wei, now that we're facing a great enemy, can't we put aside the grudges between the bright demons and the lurking demons for now? Wei Shuya didn't even look up. He said directly, of course we can put aside our grudges for now. However, judging from the attitude of the moon-worshipping cult, they clearly don't have any sincerity. Our lurking demons aren't idiots. We won't agree to anything that goes too far. Siddhartha frowned as well. It seemed like the matter was really going to be stuck here. The lurking demons didn't want to back down, and the bright demons were powerful to begin with. It was even more impossible for them to back down. As such, how could the matter continue? At this moment, Chu Xiao, who had been sitting quietly at the side, suddenly spoke up. Since we can't work together, then we might as well not listen to each other and do our own things. Can't we? Everyone subconsciously looked at Chu Xiao. Chou Xiongzi sneered. Do you think you have the right to speak here? Chu Xiao raised his eyebrows. Even you have the nerve to spout nonsense here. Why can't I? I'm here on behalf of the Shadow Demon Cult. If you think I don't have the right to speak, then do you think the Shadow Demon Cult doesn't have the right to speak as well? Very well. I'll pass on these words to the Saintess when I return. Chou Xiongzi snorted. He wanted to say something, but he forcefully swallowed it back down. Although the Shadow Demon Cult only had that woman left, she was famous for being not to be trifled with. At the very least, the Five Poison Cult didn't want to provoke her. If it were anyone else, this kind of quarrel would be easily brushed aside, and neither side would take it seriously. However, the same could not be said for that woman. After all, she was famous for being temperamental and petty. Chu Xiao smiled. He realized that Mei Qinglian seemed to have quite a reputation in the demonic lineage. Senior demonic martial artists like Wei Shuya knew her, and Mei Qinglian's reputation was enough to scare a demonic sect like the Five Poison Cult, which wasn't very strong. Wei Shuya looked at Chu Xiao with a strange look in his eyes. Do our own things? Tell me your opinion. Chu Xiao spread his hands. My opinion is very simple. Since we can't work together now, why should the Bright Demon Cult and the Hidden Demon Cult forcefully join forces? In any case, everyone's goal is the same. They all want to make trouble for the five sword sects. As long as the goal is achieved, the result is not important. Your Bright Demon Cult thinks that you are strong, so you can attack Floating Jade Mountain during the World Sword Sect Conference. On the other hand, my Yinma lineage is already used to hiding in the dark. This time around, the World Sword Sect Conference has invited so many people. It is not difficult for our Yinma lineage to sneak in. With this kind of blossoming inside and outside and attacking together, there does not seem to be any conflict. Chu Xiao's idea was not good, but it was definitely not bad. At least for the people on both sides, especially those from the Hidden Demon Cult, they felt that it was not bad. Within the Hidden Devil Clan, most of the people were actually used to acting alone. Even if they were not alone, they would rarely gather together in large numbers to attract attention. Like the Phaseless Demon Sect, the Hidden Devil Clan that could maintain such a large scale was definitely one of the few. The Phaseless Demon Sect was able to do this not because they were the strongest in the Hidden Demon Cult, but because the Phaseless Demon Sect's cultivation method was indeed top-notch in terms of hiding their aura and changing their appearance. So instead of being on tenterhooks and suspecting that they would join forces with the Bright Demon Cult, they might as well act alone. In any case, the result would be the same for them. Wei Shuya laughed and said, "This kid is right. Since the two sides can't come to an agreement, then let's not talk and fight on our own." Sidari frowned and said, "But won't there be any problems if no one mediates?" Wei Shuya said indifferently, "But who has the right to mediate? Ever since the cult leader of the Hidden Demon Cult disappeared, no one has the right to lead the entire Hidden Demon Cult. Our Hidden Demon Cult doesn't have such a person, and the moon-worshipping cult doesn't have one either. Someone is giving out random commands and is actually holding us back. We might as well make a bunch of demons dance around. Just like what that little kid said, the result will be the same anyway." Hearing this, Sadari turned his gaze towards the bright demon cult. As long as they agreed, the matter would be settled. Mountain Ghost snorted and said, "Since you don't want to take the big picture into consideration, what else can I say? But don't regret it if something unexpected happens." With that, Mountain Ghost turned and left. But from his attitude, it was clear that he had tacitly agreed to this matter. After the other bright demon cult members left, Wei Shuya walked over and patted Chu Xiu's shoulder. "You're not bad, kid. Our demon cult finally has a successor." After saying that, Wei Shuya took a step forward and left the hall. At this moment, the hidden demon cult's warriors in the hall all looked at Chu Xiu with envy and jealousy. To be valued by Wei Shuya and even say such words in front of everyone, this kid's future in the demon cult could be said to be limitless. Among the hidden demon cult, Wei Shuya wasn't the oldest old monster, nor was he the strongest demon cult. But he was the one with the greatest reputation and prestige. In the past, the 9 sky demons of the Sky Mountain had joined forces and formed an alliance to return to the Kunlun Devil cult. That was the last grand occasion of the demon cult. Although they died prematurely, it was still seen as the last glory of the demon cult. Although Wei Shuya and the other 4's actions had failed, they had also shown the entire Zhonghu the power and unity of the demon cult. Some of the righteous Dao sects had also restrained themselves. Therefore, although Wei Shuya was old, he carried the favor of the entire demon cult, as well as the powerful prestige and rallying power of that era. Such an existence was rare in the pugilistic world. For Chu Xiu to be able to obtain Wei Shuya's favor, it could be said that as long as Wei Shuya asked, even a little bit of his favor would be enough for Chu Xiu to live off for the rest of his life. Chu Xiu raised his eyebrows and said, "This Senior Wei is really an ancestor of the demon cult. His bearing is indeed not something that ordinary warriors can compare to. He is more like an expert than the elders of some famous righteous Dao sections." Mr. Lu looked at Chu Xiu with a smile that was not a smile and said, "Do you think that Senior Wei is very strong, but he is kind and easy to talk to?" Without waiting for Chu Xiu to answer, Mr. Lu laughed self-deprecatingly and said, "Senior Wei is not easy to talk to. In his early years, he was very irritable and impulsive. Otherwise, he wouldn't have formed the 9 sky demons with the other 4 people when his talent was amazing and his future was limitless to fight against the righteous Dao. Moreover, the demon cult has never had the habit of guiding the younger generation. Demon cult warriors, the competition is cruel, and infighting is very normal. However, following the destruction of the 5 great sky devils of the 9th Heaven Mountain, Senior Wei has also changed his mind. This is especially true since our hidden devil faction is already small in numbers. If we continue to act like we did in the past, it is likely that we will be destroyed sooner or later. Therefore, you should be glad that you met me and the Holy Maiden. We are all from the hidden devil lineage, so we don't mind helping you to the best of our ability. But if you met those guys from the moon-worshipping cult or the evil extreme sect, you would most likely be killed by them and then robbed of your inherited cultivation method." Chapter 380. This time, the Demonic Alliance meeting was not a happy one. Both sides parted on bad terms. However, at least the people of the demonic path were certain of one thing. At this moment, both sides had put aside their prejudices and worked together to take back the demonic creation flag. After the Demonic Alliance meeting ended, Chu Xiu followed Mr. Lu, who was disguised as the righteous warrior Su Songtao, back to the Sword Separation Pavilion to wait for the Sword Sect meeting to begin. A month later, the World Sword Sect meeting on Floating Jade Mountain officially began. Chu Xiu also followed the crowd up the mountain. Floating Jade Mountain covered a large area. This place was originally a jade mine, so it was called Floating Jade Mountain. However, after the mine on the mountain was completely excavated, it was abandoned. This time, the World Sword Sect meeting was held here because it was spacious and could accommodate more warriors. That was why they chose Floating Jade Mountain. Chu Xiu followed the crowd to the top of Floating Jade Mountain. This place had already been built with countless pavilions by the people of the 5 major sword sections. There was also a huge training ground in the middle for the upcoming competition. As the representative of the Guanzhong torture room, Chu Xiu also had a certain status. That was why Chu Xiu's position was still relatively close to the front. As for Mr. Lu, who was disguised as Su Songtao, although he was a righteous warrior on the surface, he was only a loose cultivator. That was why he was arranged to be at the back. However, Mr. Lu gestured to Chu Xiu to act according to the circumstances. Floating Jade Mountain was bustling with noise and excitement. Sword cultivators and unaffiliated cultivators who had heard the news were quarreling and discussing. Some of them looked excited as if they had caught a chance to attend a centennial event. However, they did not know that the seemingly lively Floating Jade Mountain would soon turn into a bloodbath. What's more, they didn't know that the person they were chatting with right now was actually a Devil's Path villain. At this moment, on a high platform to the north of Floating Jade Mountain, 5 sword-wielding warriors looked down at the crowd below. There were both men and women, and their auras were frighteningly restrained. These 5 people were the leaders of the 5 great sword sects of the present era: the Forgetting Sword Hut, the Storm Sword Tomb, the Sword King City, the Hidden Sword Villa, and the Yu Palace. They were either sect masters or martial arts masters with real power in their sections. The sect master of the Yu Palace was a charming young woman dressed in palace attire. Although she wasn't young anymore, she still retained her charm. Looking at the warriors below, the Yu Palace's sect master said solemnly, "Will the demonic Tao really come?" Beside her, a white-robed sword-wielding martial artist with a white scarf wrapped around his head and face said, "It doesn't matter if they come or not. If the people of the demonic Tao come, we will be singing a one-man show. If the demonic Tao doesn't come, we will sing a one-man show. In any case, the result will be the same." Another middle-aged man with a square face, wearing a brocade robe, but carrying 7 swords on his back, sneered, "Your Sword King City is still very stubborn about the position of the head of the 5 great sword sects. Sword King City is far away in the western region. Even if the position of head of the 5 great sword sects falls to you, apart from reputation, what benefits does it bring you?" The white-robed martial artist narrowed his eyes. "My Sword King City wants reputation, unlike your Hidden Sword Villa. You want to have a reputation, but you don't have the chance." The people of the Hidden Sword Villa revealed a trace of anger in their eyes. Just as they were about to say something, a youth beside them said lightly, "Before the outsiders come, are you going to quarrel or fight first? Save your energy. Who knows, there might already be countless demonic Tao people among the warriors below. If you want to make a move, don't be in a hurry." The young man who spoke looked less than 30 years old. If one ignored the vicissitudes in his eyes, he was no different from the younger generation of warriors below. The strangest thing about him was his attire. The young man looked masculine and handsome, but there was a golden tattoo of a broken sword between his eyebrows. At first glance, it looked like a third eye. He wore a loose white robe and was barefooted. A sword hung crookedly from his waist. Upon closer inspection, one would realize that it was actually a broken sword. That's right. The position of the head of the 5 great sword sects has been empty for so many years. It's time to decide who's superior and who's inferior. However, we can't kill each other here. If you want to fight, you'll have plenty of opportunities later. Moreover, these demonic Tao people have been faintly showing signs of recovery recently. Their movements are getting bigger and bigger. It's time to find an opportunity to suppress them." The last person to speak was a middle-aged man with an ordinary appearance. He wore an ordinary green robe. There was nothing special about him from head to toe. He could only be described as ordinary. He was definitely the kind of person that would not stand out in a crowd. If it were not for the long sword in his hand that had an old-fashioned mahogany scabbard, no one would even think that he was a man of the pugilistic world. However, this person seemed to have a very high status in the 5 sword sects. As soon as he spoke, the warriors of Sword King City and Hidden Sword Villa, who could not stand the sight of him, quietened down. Only the barefooted young man said lightly, "Your sitting Forgetting Sword Hut is next to the moon-worshipping cult. Do you feel the pressure?" The middle-aged man nodded. "That's the #1 sect of the demonic Tao, the moon-worshipping cult. Of course, there's pressure. More than 20 years ago, the moon-worshipping cult's leader, Xiaofan, fought with the Great Light Temple because of a poisonous insect. None of the 6 martial academy's first seats could withstand more than 3 moves from him. If it were not for the Wang Yan Zen Hall's first seat, Su Yun, and the abbot Su Ci, who was not yet the abbot at that time, the Great Light Temple would have suffered. Now, Yi Xiaonan has not fought for more than 20 years. It is said that his Heaven-Mending Heart Sutra has reached great success, and his demonic power is close to that of the Kunlun devil cult of the past. To be neighbors with such a person, only a dead person would feel no pressure. Back then we were wrong. Even if the moon-worshipping cult was not related to the Kunlun devil cult, we should have eradicated them. The same goes for the other demonic Tao sections. But in the end, not long after, the demonic Tao has begun to recover. That barefooted young man stared at the skies and spoke. Back then when we fought against the Kunlun demon sect, our Wind Cloud Sword Tomb also has a record of it. Even though Dugu Weiwa is no longer around, the Kunlun demon sect is still as strong as ever, so strong that it surpasses everyone's imagination. In that battle, our righteous sects gave it our all. The eminent monks of the Buddhist sects died. The Taoist masters of the Taoist sects also died. That generation's sword emperor of our Wind Cloud Sword Tomb also had his sword and head broken by a devil lord of the Kunlun demon sect. After the destruction of the Kunlun devil cult, it is not that the righteous Tao sects do not want to wipe out the rest of the demonic Tao in one fell swoop, but they do not have the strength. Such a powerful Kunlun devil cult will not appear again. The moon-worshipping cult is far from being qualified. I don't know if Yi Xiaonan will come this time. If he dares to come, I want to see whether his moon-worshipping cult's heaven-mending heart sutra can cover the sun and cover the moon, or my Storm Sword Tomb's divine sword eradicating abyss is unparalleled in the world. The expression of the middle-aged man from the Forgotten Sword Hut finally changed slightly. Storm Sword Tomb invited eradicating abyss out? The youth grinned, revealing a neat row of white teeth. Ever since the battle of the Kunlun devil cult, eradicating abyss has not come out for hundreds of years. Now that the World Sword Sect Conference is a grand occasion for my sword lineage, it is time for eradicating abyss to come out and see the sun and blood. The other 4 people were shocked. Only the martial artists from the 5 major sword sects knew how terrifying that sword was. Besides the Storm Sword Tomb's foundation, no one could suppress that sword. It was called a divine sword, but it was an incomparably evil and murderous weapon. At this time, the martial artists below did not feel the aura of an impending storm. For them, as long as they could hear a martial arts grandmaster-level powerhouse speak, even if it was just a sentence, it would be enough for them to benefit immensely. The seats were arranged by the Forgotten Sword Hut, and they were arranged according to the approximate positions of West Chu, Eastern Qi, and Northern Yen. Chu Xiao was someone from the Guanzhong torture room, which was located between the 3 countries, so his seat was arranged between West Chu and Northern Yen, a bit further away from Eastern Qi. The martial artist from the Forgotten Sword Hut who arranged a seat for Chu Xiao seemed to be very intelligent. He knew that Chu Xiao had once slaughtered in Eastern Qi and was not well received by the martial artists of Eastern Qi, so he specially arranged for Chu Xiao to be placed between West Chu and Northern Yen. However, he did not expect that besides Eastern Qi, there were also many people from Northern Yen and West Chu who did not like Chu Xiao. Not long after Chu Xiao took his seat, people from other sects came over. When one of the people from the new sect saw Chu Xiao, his body stiffened and he paused. Someone behind him said in surprise, "Eldertson, why aren't you walking? Take a seat." Chu Xiao looked back and saw Teacher Tsen of the Ba Mountain Sword Sect and a few other disciples of the Ba Mountain Sword Sect walking over. Their seats were next to Chu Xiao. Seeing that the person who had come was Teacher Tsen, Chu Xiao grinned at Teacher Tsen, revealing a mouthful of snow-white teeth. It was very bright. "So it is Elder Cn. Last time, Elder Tsen ran very quickly. For the first time, I know that the Ba Mountain Sword Sect is not just skilled in sword techniques, but also in lightness skills." Teacher Tsen's face flushed red at Chu Xiao's words. He had been a scholar in the past. Last time in the Tower of Heaven, he had lost face. Originally, he had put aside the grievances between him and Chu Xiao. As long as he stood on Chu Xiao's side at that time, 1/3 of the things in the Tower of Heaven would be his. Unfortunately, Teacher Tsen had made the wrong choice in the end. He chose to stand on Xiahou Wujiang's side. In the end, he only obtained half of the fierce beast's heart and fled dejectedly. Thinking of this matter, he still felt pain in his heart. The pain of regret was even more painful than when he learned that his disciple Zhang Baitao had been killed by Chu Xiao. At this time, a Unity of Heaven realm martial artist behind Teacher Tsen said in surprise, "Elder Tsen, who is this friend? Do you know him?" This time, the sect leader of the Ba Mountain Sword Sect did not come. The Ba Mountain Sword Sect was not strong and only had one martial arts grandmaster. Naturally, they could not ignore the sect just to come to the World Sword Sect Conference to watch the show. Therefore, only Teacher Tsen and another Unity of Heaven realm martial artist came with a few young disciples to watch the show. Chu Xiao smiled at the martial artist and said, "Well said. I am Chu Xiao, an old friend of Elder Cn. Chapter 381. Of course, the people of Ba Mountain Sword Sect had heard of Chu Xiu's name. This name had been spread by teacher Xian. After all, one of his personal disciples had died. No matter what, he had to report it to the sect. But a sect at the level of Ba Mountain Sword Sect would not mobilize their power for an ordinary disciple and go on a grand scale to avenge him. They had many disciples. If they went to great lengths to avenge him, they would not just lose one disciple, but many more. So if Chu Xiu was a nobody, it would not matter. But in the end, Chu Xiu was a torture officer of the Guanzhong torture room. The sect leader of Ba Mountain Sword Sect could only say his condolences to teacher Xian. But looking at teacher Tsin's expression, he was actually not that sad. But looking at Chu Xiu in front of him, the Ba Mountain Sword Sect warrior could not help but want to explode. Previously, he could not see Chu Xiu, but now that Chu Xiu was here, if he continued to pretend to be deaf and mute, he would seem too cowardly. But before he could say anything, he was pulled back by teacher Xian. Teacher Tsin immediately whispered a few words into his ear and pulled him to the side to sit down. In reality, while teacher Tsin's strength was not great, and he was somewhat hypocritical, in reality, teacher Tsin knew his limits. He knew his own strength, and he also knew the strength of Ba Mountain Sword Sect. If he fought against Chu Xiu, he would only be at a disadvantage. So while the one who died was his disciple, teacher Tsin did not want to continue fighting with Chu Xiu. This was not cowardice, this was reason. He, teacher Tsin, had roamed the martial world for so many years. He had relied on this reason to become an elder of Ba Mountain Sword Sect. Otherwise, he would have been killed many times over. And now, seeing that teacher Tsin knew his limits, Chu Xiu could not be bothered to continue targeting him. He was a reasonable person sometimes. It was teacher Tsin who had a grudge against him, not him who had a grudge against teacher Xian. Chu Xiu could naturally tell that teacher Tsin was not playing a game of enduring humiliation. Instead, he really did not want to avenge his past grudges. At this time, a voice came from behind Chu Xiu. "Brother Chu, we meet again." Chu Xiu turned around and saw that it was Xie Xiao Lu from the World Alliance. Besides Xie Xiao Lu were a few Unity of the World Realm martial artists. Clearly, they were also experts from the World Alliance. Xie Xiao Lu's strength was right there. He was just a spectator, not a representative like Chu Xiu. Chu Xiu smiled and said, "I knew you would come. The 5 great sword sects will hold the World Sword Sect Conference in West Chu, so your World Alliance will definitely be invited." "That's right, your World Alliance's alliance leader Chen didn't come." Xie Xiao Lu shook his head and said, "The World Alliance has so many things to deal with, how could my master have the time to come here and play with them? And according to my master's personality, if those so-called Sword Path Grandmasters say something wrong during their sermon, my master will probably go up and argue with them. In the end, it's even possible for them to fight." Chu Xiu rubbed his chin. He seemed to have heard some rumors that the World Alliance's alliance leader Chen Qingdi was indeed not someone who was easy to talk to. At this time, Xie Xiao Lu walked closer to Chu Xiu and said in a low voice, "Brother Chu, if the World Sword Sect Conference ends early or if something happens, you should immediately leave Floating Jade Mountain. Don't stay here any longer." Chu Xiu revealed a strange look in his eyes and said, "What news did you hear?" Xie Xiao Lu nodded and said, "My master said that this World Sword Sect Conference doesn't seem to be peaceful. The 5 great sword sects' actions are provoking the demonic path. I don't think the demonic path will let this matter go. In any case, my master said that if it were him, he would definitely make a move and directly smash this Floating Jade Mountain to smithereens. So, our World Alliance is only here to watch the show. After watching the show, we'll leave immediately. It's best if we don't get involved in the matter between the demonic path and the 5 great sword sects." Chu Xiu nodded, but he was thinking in his heart, as expected, the other sects are not stupid. These people also know what the 5 great sword sects are preparing to do. However, this is an internal matter of the 5 great sword sects. Moreover, the demonic path has been showing signs of revival these years, so they have to suppress it. So no one stopped it. Chu Xiu asked, "Since Alliance leader Chen already knows about this, does he still dare to let you go up Floating Jade Mountain?" Xie Xiao Lu said matter-of-factly, "Why not? This is a fight between the demonic path and the 5 great sword sects. The others have no intention of interfering. Our World Alliance is just watching from the side and has no intention of making a move." Chu Xiu was silent. It seemed that Chen Qingdi had guessed wrongly. This time, the demonic path would indeed act, but if they did, it would be a major move. He had thought that this time, floating Jade Mountain was only a matter between the sword path and the demonic path. He did not know that in the end, this matter had evolved into a war between the righteous path and the demonic path. Of course, even this had nothing to do with the World Alliance. Because the World Alliance did not belong to the righteous path, they also did not belong to the demonic path. So when the two sides fought, no one would provoke a neutral faction like the World Alliance. At this time, Xie Xiaolu also looked at Teacher Tsin and pursed his lips. Isn't this the elder of the Ba Mountain Sword sect who escaped last time? What, have you settled your grudge with him? In the time that Xie Xiaolu had known Chu Xiu, he had more or less understood Chu Xiu's personality. He was tough, strong, and had a hint of madness. Right now, there were only two kinds of people who had a grudge with Chu Xiu. One was the living that could not be killed, and the other was the dead that were already dead. Right now, the people of the Ba Mountain Sword sect were living peacefully with Chu Xiu. This made Xie Xiaolu feel that it was incredible. Chu Xiu corrected. It is they who have a grudge with me, not the other way around. Hearing Chu Xiu say this, Xie Xiaolu immediately understood what Chu Xiu meant. So the people of the Ba Mountain Sword sect were afraid. But Xie Xiaolu felt that this was normal. He was in West Chu and naturally knew what the people of the Ba Mountain Sword sect were like. Among the top sects in the world, factions like the Ba Mountain Sword sect were at the bottom because they only had one martial arts grandmaster. Not only that, but this martial Dao grandmaster's strength was not too strong, and there were no outstanding figures in the next generation, which was very embarrassing. Once there was a gap in one generation of the Ba Mountain Sword sect, the sect would immediately fall apart, and then it would be completely removed from the Zhonghu songs. So usually, sects like the Ba Mountain Sword sect would act like cowards, and act like top sects with some small sections. But in front of some troublesome opponents, they did not mind surrendering. At this time, there was a hubbub in the crowd behind them. Chu Xiu raised an eyebrow and said, "Important people have come up the mountain?" Xie Xiaolu shook his head and said, "The important people have come to Floating Jade Mountain ahead of time. The ones coming up at this time are only the younger generation." As he spoke, Chu Xiu and Xie Xiaolu instinctively looked in the direction of the newcomer. Chu Xiu frowned. Xie Xiaolu rarely smiled and said, "Ba Mountain Sword sect's grievance with you has been resolved, but this person is not. I heard that in the Northern Yen, if someone mentions your name, this person will not be able to control his demeanor." The person who had just come up the mountain was a handsome young man with an extraordinary presence. He wore a gilded robe and was surrounded by countless warriors. This person could be considered an old acquaintance of Chu Xiu, but Chu Xiu had not seen him for a long time. This person was Nie Donglu of the Morgue village. Just as Xie Xiaolu had said, the grievance between Chu Xiu and Nie Donglu had not been resolved. Previously, when Chu Xiu stole the treasure from Nie Donglu had sent people to kill him. At that time, Chu Xiu had no one to rely on and was in a sorry state. Chu Xiu would not forget this grievance. Chu Xiu stared at Nie Donglu for a while and suddenly said, "Nie Donglu has entered the Five Qis returning to the Origin Realm?" Chu Xiu vaguely remembered that the last time Nie Donglu's news came, he was only a physical invulnerability expert. Then he went into seclusion because of something, and his ranking on the Longhu leaderboard fell out of the top 10. Now he has actually entered the Five Qis returning to the Origin Realm. Is it because Nie Donglu's talent is unparalleled, or did he encounter some opportunity? Xie Xiaolu looked at Chu Xiu in surprise and said, "You don't know." "What should I know?" Chu Xiu asked back. Xie Xiaolu was a little speechless. "You are a Northern Yen martial artist. Don't you care about what happened in the Northern Yen recently?" Chu Xiu said calmly, "People in Zhonghu are like duckweed. How can I care about my background? I can't even take care of the things in front of me. How can I have the leisure to care about the Northern Yen?" Xie Xiaolu shook his head again. Mo Tianlin always said that he was indifferent. It must be natural for him to shave his head and join a Buddhist sect to meditate. But now it seemed that Chu Xiu was even more indifferent than him. Looking at Nie Donglu in the crowd, Xie Xiaolu said in a low voice, "Nie Donglu obtained an opportunity. But this opportunity is not an item, but a person. Some time ago, it was said that Nie Donglu was defeated by a woman. This matter was probably too much for someone as proud as Nie Donglu, so he put down everything and went into seclusion. Later, because there were some things to take care of in the morgue, but Nie Rinlong wasn't there, Nie Donglu had to go. But unexpectedly, he met the great Northern Yen Jianghu Stone General Han Baxian and was taken in as a personal disciple. A martial arts grandmaster for a father and a martial arts grandmaster for a master. Is this opportunity big enough? Chu Xiu looked at Nie Donglu in surprise. This guy's luck was really good. He just went out for a trip and he was able to have a martial arts grandmaster as his master. And Han Baxian wasn't just any martial arts grandmaster. Although he didn't belong to any sect, he was very famous in the Northern Yen. He was one of the strongest among the martial arts grandmasters. Chapter 382. Stone General Han Baxian's nickname was quite interesting. He had indeed been a general in his early years and had even become the general of the Stone Forest Army that guarded the western part of Yen. He was considered a core force in the Northern Yen military. At that time, Han Baxian was even valued by a big shot in the Northern Yen military. He was prepared to take him under the command of the Fifth Army and make him a deputy general. However, Han Baxian was obsessed with martial arts and despised being in the military for interfering with his training. Therefore, he resigned from his position as the general of the Stone Forest Army and focused on training. He went to the cold lands of the far north or the far west desert to polish his martial arts. He was more famous there than in the military. Rumor had it that Han Baxian's personality was domineering and aggressive, and he was even a bit of a martial arts fanatic. Logically speaking, his personality should not be compatible with Nie Donglu, but now Han Baxian had taken Nie Donglu as his disciple, which made Chu Xiu feel a bit strange. Nie Donglu was from the Northern Yen, so he was naturally assigned to the Northern Yen side. It just so happened that Chu Xiu's position was not close to Eastern Qi. To his left was Western Chu, and to his right was Northern Yen. When Nie Donglu looked over, he naturally saw Chu Xiu standing there. Nie Donglu's expression changed slightly, but he still revealed a smile. Nie Donglu's attitude towards Chu Xiu was very strange. In the beginning, he did not see Chu Xiu as an opponent. To him, Chu Xiu was only a small obstacle. If he could kill him, he would. If he could not, he would not waste too much effort to hunt down Chu Xiu. Therefore, after obtaining the treasure at Luyang Mountain, Nie Donglu did not even use the power of the morgue to hunt down Chu Xiu. He only gathered some sects that wanted to curry favor with the morgue. When Chu Xiu left the Northern Yen, he quickly became famous in the Jianghu like a dragon returning to the sea. He even jumped to the top 10 of the Longhu leaderboard. It would be a lie to say that Nie Donglu wasn't jealous of the situation. Nie Donglu naturally felt uncomfortable as he looked at the loose cultivator he could crush to death in the past, who had now become a torture officer in the Guangzhong torture room and a young elite ranked above him on the Longhu list. Even so, Nie Donglu would only feel uncomfortable. He wasn't a weak-minded person like Sword King City's Lin Kai-yun, who would be affected by such a small matter. What really affected Nie Donglu was not himself, but the rumors outside. People in Jianghu always liked to spread gossip. Some people just couldn't bear to see others doing well. The more unlucky someone was, the happier they would be. Even though Nie Donglu had countless friends outside and appeared to be very humble, polite, and loyal, there were still some people who just wanted to see him suffer. So as soon as the news about Chu Xiu reached the Northern Yen side, there would immediately be people in the Northern Yen side saying that Nie Donglu had let Chu Xiu go, and now he was being stepped on. Anyway, it was as ugly as it could be. These rumors had already affected Nie Donglu's reputation to a certain extent. He couldn't ignore it. There was only one way to solve it. It wasn't to kill those people who were gossiping, but to defeat Chu Xiu. There were too many of the former. Not to mention the current power of the Morgue Village. Even if the Morgue Village had the power of the Great Light Temple, they still wouldn't be able to kill all of them. So, the most reliable way was the latter. As long as Chu Xiu was defeated or killed by him, everything would be solved. It was simple and direct. In the past, Nie Donglu liked to use schemes and look down on those simple-minded boorish people. In his opinion, such boorish people would be killed by others sooner or later, no matter how strong they were. But ever since he was defeated by that woman, Nie Donglu suffered some setbacks. In the face of absolute power, his schemes couldn't be put to good use. Nie Donglu said he was the young master of the Morgue Village, and someone said, "You lost to a woman." Nie Donglu said he was a hero on the Longhu list, and someone said, "You lost to a woman." Nie Donglu said he had already started training in isolation, and someone said, "You lost to a woman." There was no way to clear his name of being defeated in public, and there was no way to justify it. It was simple and direct. It also made Nie Donglu realize that sometimes, absolute power was more important than schemes. After that, Nie Donglu got to know his current master, Han Baxian. This famous martial arts master of the northern Yen world was extremely wild in both strength and personality. He also taught Nie Donglu many things other than martial arts. When one's strength reached a certain level, it was enough to destroy any conspiracy. In the past, Nie Donglu had put the cart before the horse. Now, Nie Donglu finally realized that it was right to rely on schemes and brains, but the most important thing a warrior should rely on was their fists. Thinking of this, Nie Donglu walked over to Chu Xiu and said with a smile, "Brother Chu, long time no see." Everyone present looked at Chu Xiu and Nie Donglu. These two were heroes on the Longhu list, and everyone had heard of the feud between them. However, in the past few years, Chu Xiu had been in Guangzhou, and Nie Donglu had also been training in isolation in the northern Yen. The two had not had many opportunities to interact. Now that they were in time for the World Sword Sect Conference, were they preparing to warm up before the conference? Chu Xiu also looked at Nie Donglu and said calmly, "Yes, long time no see. It feels like things have remained the same, but people have changed. Brother Nie, you have changed a lot." At the moment, Chu Xiu's attitude was calm, and there was no sign that he had a great feud with Nie Donglu. The two of them seemed like old friends catching up. Nie Donglu looked straight at Chu Xiu and took a step forward. The aura around him became extremely serious. In the past, Chu Xiu had fought with Nie Donglu. Compared to the Nie Donglu of the past, the aura around him was completely different. It could be imagined how much he had changed in this period of time. People change, don't they? But what has already happened will not change. Brother Chu, it is time to end the feud between us. Chu Xiu raised his eyebrows and said, "I was the one who was chased miserably back then. It seems like I should be the one saying this. The World Sword Sect Conference is a good place. With so many people watching, it is enough for us to settle the past feud. Of course, looking at you, you probably can't wait and want to make a move now? All right, I will accompany you to the end." An extremely oppressive aura was released from Chu Xiu's body. It was not weaker than Nie Dongliu's at all. In fact, the strong killing intent was even stronger than Nie Dongliu's. Since leaving the northern Yen, Chu Xiu had always been growing through killing. On the other hand, Nie Donglu had been training in seclusion and training with his master. Although his cultivation level had improved quickly, the number of people he had killed was not as much as Chu Xiu. Just when both sides thought that the two of them would definitely fight, Nie Dongliu's aura suddenly dissipated. Like a spring breeze and rain, it dissipated the killing intent on Chu Xiu's body. Nie Donglu laughed and said, "Brother Chu, I was just joking. Did you take it seriously? I don't care about grudges anymore. If there's a chance later, we can have a spar. However, the World Sword Sect Convention is about to begin. If we fight here, aren't we not giving face to the 5 major sword sects?" Chu Xiu suddenly sneered and said, "I realized that I was wrong before. You, young Master Nie, haven't changed at all." After saying that, Chu Xiu sat down and ignored Nie Donglu. Nie Donglu did the same and went to his seat. The two of them did not say another word. Previously, Chu Xiu thought that Nie Donglu had become more straightforward and wanted to solve the problem with his fists. He did not expect him to still be the same. In the past, the one who had been hunted was Chu Xiu. In the end, Nie Donglu said that he didn't care about grudges. Didn't that make him seem petty? Moreover, the one who had released his aura to provoke was Nie Donglu. In the end, he said that he was joking and Chu Xiu became the petty one. This person's mouth was full of lies, and his schemes and calculations were already embedded in his bones. Every word he said had to be at least a little bit of an advantage. However, Chu Xiu did not care. He did not have a good reputation in Eastern Qi, or the entire Jianghu. Chu Xiu did not need a good reputation. Now that he was called petty and calculative, it would not hurt Chu Xiu. As for why Nie Donglu did not make a move in the end, the reason was very simple. It was because he was not confident. If Nie Donglu was confident, he would not care about the reputation of the 5 great sword sects. He would have defeated Chu Xiu on the spot or even killed him to regain his reputation. After all, he was the young master of Honor Village. He was already dead. The 5 major sword sects would not let him die with them. Nie Donglu did not make a move because he was not confident. Based on the aura that Chu Xiu had released, he was not confident that he could beat Chu Xiu on the spot. So he had to wait. He had to wait until he understood Chu Xiu, or until Chu Xiu was exhausted and injured. Han Baxian had taught him to use his fists to solve problems, but Nie Donglu did not forget his brain and calculations. Wouldn't it be safer to crush the opponent under the premise that he had absolute confidence in winning? Xie Xiaolu sat next to Chu Xiu and asked in a low voice, "Are you going to make a move later?" A cold light flashed in Chu Xiu's eyes as he said, "Even if I don't make a move, the young manor lord won't let this go. I want revenge, and he wants his reputation. We will have to fight." Xie Xiaolu nodded. "Be careful. I have not met Nie Donglu, but my master has evaluated his father, Nie Renlong. Nie Renlong is not weak, but he is not too strong either. But what makes Nie Renlong truly frightens people is his methods. Most of the 6 gangs were born in the wilderness. The ones who can walk to the end and have the greatest potential, other than West Chu's World Alliance, are the Northern Yen Memorial Village." Chapter 383. It wasn't hard to deal with a reckless warrior who only knew how to fight and kill, and it wasn't hard to deal with a guy who only knew how to plot in the dark. What was really difficult was to combine the two, and Nie Donglu was like that now. Chu Xiu knew that the ghost village was not to be trifled with. However, the enmity had already been formed, so it had to be resolved sooner or later. At the foot of Floating Jade Mountain, almost everyone who was supposed to be there had arrived. The disciples of the Forgotten Sword Hut had already come out to maintain order, ready to wait for the World Sword Sect Conference to officially begin. But at that moment, an even louder clamor came from the foot of the mountain. Clearly, the person who had come was even more famous than Nie Donglu. Chu Xiu turned around and saw that the people who had come were people from the Great Light Temple, Sabodhi Monastery, and some other top sections. These major sects were all invited by the 5 sword sects to attend the ceremony. Top sects of the Jianghu of this level never lacked martial Dao grandmasters. For example, in the Great Light Temple's 3 great Zen halls and the 6 great martial academies, every first seat had the strength of a martial Dao grandmaster. The people from the Great Light Temple were the head of the Vajra department, Su Yan, and the head of the Kongji Zen Hall. Su Du, the martial institution, and the Zen Hall had each sent 1 person, which was enough to give face to the 5 major sword sections. The first seat of the Kongji Zen Hall, Su Du, was a middle-aged monk who looked to be in his 40s. Compared to the other monks of the Temple of Great Light, Su Du appeared to be a little sloppy. He swayed as he walked, and without his monk robes, he looked like an old ruffian on the streets. He did not look like an accomplished monk at all. However, among these people his position was the highest. The other warriors of the Great Light Temple could only stand behind him. This made the few disciples of the Great Light Temple behind him cover their faces with their hands, looking embarrassed. They really could not understand why the temple would send Uncle Master Shudu here. This was simply affecting the image of the Great Light Temple. Su Yan tugged at Su Du's arm and whispered, "Senior brother Su Du, mind your image." Su Du glanced at him and said indifferently, "Image? I'm not senior brother Abbot. What image do I need? Back then, my master gave me the Dharma name of Su Du. I have not wasted my time, and I have not let him down. What's more, the Buddha has said, everything is like a dream, an illusion, a bubble, and a shadow, like dew, or like lightning. I have Buddha in my heart, so who can say that I have tarnished the reputation of the Buddhist sect? A Buddha with a gold-plated body and a dignified appearance is a Buddha, but a clay and wooden body that protects the poor people is not a Buddha." Junior brother, you are too obsessed with appearances. It is not a good thing to be too attached to these appearances. Buddha is in your heart, not on your kasaya. Su Yan was rendered speechless by Su Du's words, and he rolled his eyes. The 6 great martial institutions cultivated martial arts, while the 3 great Zen halls cultivated both Zen and martial arts. In terms of understanding of various Buddhist scriptures, they were far inferior to the 3 great Zen halls in terms of eloquence. Although Su Yan knew that these were all excuses and sophistry, When he heard it, it seemed to make sense. He looked at the Buddhist disciples behind him and saw that they were all admiring Uncle Master Su Du, who was indeed an eminent monk of his generation. Seeing this, Su Yan was instantly helpless. He was deeply worried about the future of the Great Light Temple. At this moment, Hui Zhen, who was behind him, suddenly stiffened and paused. Hui Zhen, what's wrong? Su Yan asked. Because of Ming Chen's death, Hui Zhen, who was not young to begin with, had recently aged even more. Therefore, Su Yan had brought Hui Zhen to the World Sword Sect Conference as a way to relax. Following Hui Zhen's gaze, Su Yan also saw Chu Xiao. This made him frown. He did not expect Chu Xiao to be here. After all, the World Sword Sect Conference was a grand event of the entire pugilistic world. It was a rather serious one. Therefore, the people who could represent their respective factions were definitely the mainstays of their respective factions. Although Chu Xiao's battle prowess was comparable to the unity of heaven and man realm, in reality, he was still at the Five Qis origin realm. His experience in the Guanzhong torture room was far from that of the other disciplinary officers and the head of the arrest department. Therefore, Su Yan would never have expected Chu Xiao to be here. Su Yan looked at Hui Zhen worriedly. Just as he was about to say something, he saw Hui Zhen turn his head indifferently and wave his hand. Uncle Master, I'm fine. Let's go. Hui Zhen knew that it was difficult for Su Yan. He did not want to put this Uncle Master, who had always treated him well, in a difficult position. However, some monks from the Vajra Yard were furious. Chu Xiao killed our senior brother Ming Chen and Uncle Master Hui Zhen. Are we just going to let this matter go? The monks from the Vajra Yard cultivated together. These monks were not Hui Zhen's disciples, but they were similarly furious over Ming Chen's death. Some of the grudges in the Jianghu were actually unreasonable. Even the Great Light Temple could not stand on the side of reason. In any case, in the eyes of these warriors, Ming Chen was their senior brother. Although he was hot-tempered and easily angered to outsiders, he took good care of them internally. He was cold on the outside but warm on the inside. Now that Ming Chen had been killed, they did not care whether Ming Chen had sought trouble with Chu Xiao first or not. As long as they knew that Ming Chen had died at the hands of Chu Xiao, that was enough. Hui Jin stopped these people and waved his hand. He said in a low voice, "Don't be rash. I also want to take revenge for Ming Chen, but revenge depends on the time and place. What you are doing now is ruining the reputation of the Great Light Temple. You must consider the bigger picture." Among the warriors present, Hui Zhen, who had lost his disciple, was the calmest. Although the others were somewhat indignant, as Ming Chen's master Hui Zhen had already said that this matter would be over for now. What else could they say? They could only suppress the anger in their hearts and pretend that they did not see Chu Xiao. When Xu Du, who was walking at the front, saw this scene, he could not help but shake his head. He said, "Revenge breeds revenge. When will there be an end to it? Grudges cannot be suppressed. The more you suppress it, the more it will rebound. At that time, it will probably cause even more unexpected consequences. If we want to completely end this grudge, we must completely kill the other party." Senior brother Shuyun made a mistake this time. For the sake of a favor, he did not let the Great Light Temple take action. However, this deepened the grudge. No one can say for sure how it will develop. Su Yan frowned and said, "Since you know, why didn't you tell senior brother Shuyun?" Xu Du looked at Su Yan like he was looking at an idiot. Based on senior brother Shuyun's personality, once he has set his mind on something, even if the abbot speaks, it will not be easy for him to change his mind, much less something like this. I don't want to deal with senior brother Shuyun, so if something like this happens again in the future and you want to speak, I'll remind you to do it yourself. Su Yan was instantly speechless. Actually, Su Yan did not even think about dealing with senior brother Shuyun. Otherwise, he would not have agreed to Shuyun's request so easily back then. Shuyun's position in the Great Light Temple was very special. It could be said that he was second only to the abbot. He was even an existence that could faintly rival the abbot, Su Ci. Furthermore, Shuyun's personality was a little polarizing. On the outside, he was the Great Light Temple's Wangyan Zen Hall's first seat. He had a profound cultivation in the Buddhist Dharma, and he was an eminent monk with a peaceful personality. However, on the other hand, almost only the people of the Great Light Temple knew about him. He could be said to be paranoid and terrifying. Sometimes, Even if the martial artists of the Great Light Temple had to deal with the abbot, they would not want to deal with Shuyun. After the people of the Great Light Temple took their seats, they looked forward. Not a single one of them looked at Chu Xiu, even though Chu Xiu was their Great Light Temple's enemy. This was also a habit formed by the precepts of the Great Light Temple. Every move was strictly executed. It was very strict. Xie Xiaolu saw the actions of the people from the Great Light Temple and said with slight surprise, "Did the Guanzhong torture room help you settle the matter of you killing Ming Chen?" Chu Xiu nodded and said, "Although the Guanzhong torture room does not have a long history, it still has some foundation. I only killed Ming Chen from the Jingang department, not the most outstanding disciple of the Great Light Temple, Wisdom King Zhongxian. The Guanzhong torture room can still suppress it." "Oh right. Did Wisdom King Zhongxian not come to the World Sword Sect Conference this time?" Xie Xiaolu shook his head and said, "I heard that Wisdom King Zhongxian had already stepped into the unity of heaven and man realm a few years ago. You can't kill him even if you wanted to. This World Sword Sect Conference is mainly prepared for sword cultivators. If Wisdom King Zhongxian comes, will he go? As a hero ranked in the top 10 of the Dragon and Tiger list, if Zhongxian doesn't go, he will be ridiculed as a coward. But if he goes, he will have the intention of provoking the major sword sections. So this time, Zhongxian didn't come at all. Little Celestial Master Zhang Qingzhen also didn't come. The top 5 of the Dragon and Tiger list is only Chief Sword, Feng Qi Xiao. Oh right, Yu Palace's Yan Fian is also here. The final winner of this World Sword Sect Conference will most likely be Feng Qi Xiao. As for the others, they will more or less get some benefits. But among the younger generation of martial artists, when it comes to sword cultivation, no one can beat Feng Qi Xiao. Just as Xie Xiaolu was discussing Feng Qi Xiao, the World Sword Sect Conference was about to begin. Everyone had already taken their seats, but at this time, a youth walked out from Sword King City's side and walked straight towards Chu Xiu. The youth was dressed in white warrior clothes, but he didn't wear the Sword King City's white headscarf. His appearance couldn't be considered too handsome, but he gave people a very natural and comfortable feeling. A simple and unadorned sword with a black hilt was wrapped in sackcloth and hung loosely on his back. It didn't match the temperament of an ordinary martial artist from Sword King City. This young man seemed ordinary, and did not attract as much attention as Nie Donglu. However, when he moved, everyone present could not help but look at him, as if there was some mysterious attraction on this young man's body that attracted everyone's attention. Xie Xiaolu was surprised and said, "Chief Swords Feng Qi Xiao. You also have a grudge with Feng Qi Xiao?" Chu Xiu looked at the approaching Feng Qi Xiao and said with an unchanging expression, "I don't have a grudge with Feng Qi Xiao, but I don't have a good relationship with Sword King City." At this time, Feng Qi Xiao had already walked in front of Chu Xiu and grinned at Chu Xiu. He had a gentle temperament. "My name is Young Master Feng, not Young Master Feng. You should have heard of me." Chu Xiu also had an indifferent expression as he said, "Chu Xiu, the Xiu that says everything is over. Since you've come to find me, you should naturally know of me." Chapter 384. Feng Qi Xiao is very famous in Jianghu. He is ranked 3rd on the Longhu list and is known as a sword Dao genius rarely seen in a millennium. He started learning the sword at the age of 7 and learned all 4 major sword halls of Sword King City in 5 years. Even the sword instructors of Sword King City are ashamed of their inferiority. Chu Xiu also has a lot of enmity with Sword King City. Sword King City's outstanding disciple Lin Kaiyun, second only to Feng Qi Xiao, had his state of mind damaged because of him. Moreover, Sword King City's elite disciple Brilliant Sword Fei Mo also had his cultivation crippled. Therefore, Chu Xiu wasn't surprised that Sword King City came looking for trouble with him. Just when Chu Xiu thought that Feng Qi Xiao would issue a challenge in a domineering manner, Feng Qi Xiao showed a helpless expression and said, "You should know why I came looking for you. In fact, I don't want to. I'm actually very lazy. Aside from practicing the sword, I don't want to do anything else. Lin Kaiyun has always been envious of my handsomeness, elegance, majesty, and unbridled nature. In Sword King City, he always spoke ill of me. He's very stingy, so I don't want to take revenge for him. There's also Firma. That guy is famous for having a foul mouth and giving himself such an unlucky name. I've already said it before. Who knows? Maybe one day someone will find him an eyesore and conveniently cripple him. Now it seems that I have the potential to become a divination grandmaster. Right, what do you think about me going to Longhu Mountain to learn divination from those ox noses? I'm very familiar with Zhang Qingjin. Seeing that we're so familiar, Celestial Master Mansion shouldn't refuse me, right? I'm sorry, I digressed. What I meant was that although I'm too lazy to avenge them, the people of my sect are forcing me to seek justice for that idiot. After all, I'm the most handsome disciple of this generation in Sword King City, so I have no choice but to shoulder this heavy burden. But I don't want to fight this kind of meaningless battle. How about this? Later on in the arena, I will use my sword 3 times and you will use your saber 3 times. Then, you will pretend to be no match for me and we will both save our strength. What do you think? After all, you're ranked 6th on the Longhu leaderboard and I'm ranked 3rd. This proves that in terms of handsomeness, I'm better than you. It's not embarrassing for you to lose to me. I'll treat you to a meal after this. What do you think? Feng Qixiao's mouth was even faster than his sword. After he finished speaking, both Chu Xiu and Xie Xiaolu were dumbstruck. Who would have thought, that the world-famous chief swordmaster Feng Qixiao, who was known as the rare genius swordsman in 1,000 years, Feng Qixiao, was actually a chatterbox and a joker? Xie Xiaolu was even more speechless. Who said that the tiger and dragon list was ranked according to one's handsomeness? If it was ranked that way, then Lu Fengxian would definitely be ranked first. Chu Xiu's ability to accept was a bit stronger. Geniuses always had some differences from ordinary people. It was just that this Feng Qixiao was different from ordinary people in a big way. Seeing that Chu Xiu did not speak, Feng Qixiao deliberately moved closer and widened his eyes. Don't think that I'm joking. I'm serious. If you don't believe me, look at my sincere eyes. I, Feng Qixiao, am a man of my word. I never lie. The surrounding people could not listen to him at this time, especially the sword cultivators. Among the young disciples of the 5 major sword sects, the disciples of Hidden Sword Villa were relatively mediocre. Although the Forgetting Sword Hut and Storm Sword Mound had deep foundations, they had high requirements for their young disciples. Therefore, some of their disciples were not even released to roam the Jianghu. As for the Yu Nu Palace's Yan Fian, she was a woman. Therefore, all the young sword cultivators in the world regarded Feng Qixiao as their idol. However, now that they saw their idol in such a state, they felt like their dreams had collapsed and their hearts were shattered. On the Sword King City side, a middle-aged Unity of Heaven and Man realm martial artist shouted angrily, "Feng Qixiao, get the hell back here. If you dare say another word of nonsense today, I will immediately report to the sect and you will be confined for a year." The middle-aged martial artist covered his face, looking as if he had lost all face. He simply wanted to cry but had no tears. Look at Dragon Tiger Mountain's little heavenly master, Zhang Qingjin. Not only did he have the strength of a little heavenly master, but he also had the bearing of a little heavenly master. Anyone who had seen Zhang Qingjin would praise him. Look at Great Brightness Temple's Wisdom King, Zhongxian. He had been cultivating in the bitter cold of the far north all these years. When he came out to roam Jianghu, he exterminated evil and was praised by the people of Jianghu. Finally, he looked back at Feng Qixiao. How did their Sword King City cultivate such a thing? Although Feng Qixiao's talent in Sword Dao was indeed peerless, he was worried about Sword King City's future. Was it really the right decision to hand Sword King City over to Feng Qixiao? Feng Qixiao shrugged helplessly at Chu Xiu and turned back to the Sword King City's side. The Sword King City's martial artist glared fiercely at Feng Qixiao and said, "The World Sword Sect Conference is the key to our Sword King City's ascension to the top of the 5 major sword sects. Put away your mischievous look. Zhang Qingjin and Zhongxian are not here. You are the leader of the younger generation. You must fight for our Sword King City's prestige. You are not allowed to hold back or throw the game. Do you hear me?" Feng Qixiao nodded listlessly. When the martial artist saw Feng Qixiao's appearance, he couldn't help getting angry and shouted again, "Speak!" 7th young Master Feng pointed at his mouth and said with an aggrieved expression, "Didn't you say you wouldn't let me speak? If I speak, you'll go to Master and complain about me. I don't want to be grounded." The martial artist covered his face and sat down. He waved his hand dispiritedly and didn't want to talk to Feng Qixiao anymore. On Chu Xiu's side, Xiao Lu still couldn't react. Feng Qi Xiao, who was ranked third on the Longhu list, turned out to be like this. This completely subverted his imagination. At this moment, a deafening clang of a sword rang out in the middle of the training grounds. It shook the heavens and the earth, immediately causing the noise to stop. The ordinary-looking martial arts grandmaster from the sword hut walked onto the training grounds in the middle of the training grounds. He cupped his hands at the people around him and said loudly, "Welcome to the World Sword Sect Conference, everyone. If there is anything lacking in the hospitality, please forgive me." Seeing this ordinary-looking middle-aged martial artist stand out, there was another round of discussion below. This extremely ordinary-looking middle-aged martial artist's identity was not simple. He was the martial arts grandmaster of the Sword Hut, ranked 29th on the honor list, Kongming Sword, Han Tingyi. There were not many people in the Sword Hut. There were actually less than 3,000 inner sect disciples, and the rest were outer sect disciples who did odd jobs. Even so, there were less than 10,000 people. Thus, Han Tingyi did not have any position in the Sword Hut. He was simply a martial arts grandmaster, responsible for teaching some disciples and handling some miscellaneous items. The martial artists of the Sword Hut cultivated the way of the sword. They comprehended sword intent, understood sword theory, and practiced sword techniques. They progressed step by step and had an incomparably solid foundation. But at the same time, this also meant that the martial artists of the Sword Hut spent most of their time cultivating in seclusion, keeping a very low profile. This was the case for Han Tingyi. In his early years, he had not even been on the Longhu list. By the time he left, he was already over 40 years old, only a step away from entering the realm of martial arts grandmasters. But when Han Tingyi stepped into the martial arts world for the first time, he shocked everyone with a single brilliant feat. This was because a disciple of the Sword Hut was killed by the Ghost King sect and dismembered to refine pills. Han Tingyi was ordered to avenge him. He hunted down an entire branch of the Ghost King sect, over 200 people, and killed over 10 Unity of Heaven realm martial artists. He brought back the remains of the Sword Hut disciple. After stepping into the martial arts grandmaster realm, Han Tingyi had consecutively defeated 2 of the 4 major sword hall masters of Sword King City. His might was boundless. This seemingly ordinary middle-aged man's strength was very extraordinary. Sending Han Tingyi to host the World Sword Sect Conference was already very important. In the past, when there were not so many people, the hosts were all Unity of Heaven realm martial artists. Han Tingyi said in a deep voice, "The World Sword Sect Conference is a grand event of my sword lineage. Since ancient times, the sword has been the leader of all weapons. Now that my sword lineage is prosperous, we can host the World Sword Sect Conference. Everyone can exchange pointers and make my sword lineage even more glorious." Han Tingyi's words made some of the martial artists present who did not use swords feel a little uncomfortable. What did he mean by the sword was the leader of all weapons? Did he mean that those who used other weapons were inferior? However, although these people felt a little indignant, they had to admit a fact. In the current martial arts world, martial artists who cultivated the sword indeed had the advantage and the majority. For example, there were 5 major sword sects in the martial arts world, but there were no 5 major saber sections. The other martial artists who used spears, rods, and other strange weapons were even more of a minority. Han Tingyi continued, "This time, there are so many martial artists participating in the World Sword Sect Conference. As for the rules, they naturally have to change. The conference is divided into 3 rounds. The first round is a spar between the younger generation martial artists. In the martial arts world, a single tree does not make a forest. The younger generation martial artists represent the future. It is the future of the martial arts world. Therefore, this round is arranged at the very front. The second round is a spar between martial arts grandmasters. Martial arts itself is the way of fighting and killing. Without fighting, it is impossible to talk on paper. Even martial arts grandmasters cannot work behind closed doors. In the first 2 rounds, be it sword cultivators or martial artists from other sects present, everyone can participate. As for the last round, it will be a discussion of the sword. Our 5 great sword sects will each send a grandmaster to explain the sword Dao. If there are any mistakes or inaccuracies, please point them out and correct them." When Han Tingyi finished speaking, the ones who were the most excited were the martial artists who were rogue cultivators. They did not come to the World Sword Sect Conference with the intention of entering the arena. That kind of place was not something they could go to. These people came for the last round, where those martial arts grandmasters would explain the Tao. The World Sword Sect Conference was a rare event that happened once in 100 years. It was their honor to be able to encounter it. After all, it was a martial arts grandmaster explaining the Tao. Normally, they would not have such an opportunity. At this moment, Han Tingyi's eyes revealed a hint of surprise. He said, "Since it is an arena competition, there must be a prize. Our 5 major sword sects have also come up with a few prizes this time. We are prepared to give it to the winner of the younger generation, and the martial arts grandmasters from the 5 major sword sections." As he spoke, Han Tingyi waved his hand and immediately, a few things were carried up. Chapter 385. The 5 great sword sects could be said to have put in a lot of effort for this World Sword Sect Conference. They had taken out a lot of good things. The rewards that were brought up were covered with red cloth. Han Tingyi lifted the first red cloth. Inside was a sword, a secret box, and a bottle of pills. Han Tingyi pointed to the sword whose hilt was black but whose blade was scarlet red, and said in a deep voice, "This sword is a top-grade 6 precious weapon, Scarlet Demon, rank 65th in the world-famous sword manual. In the past, it was the personal weapon of a devil envoy of the Kunlun devil cult. Now it has been cleansed of its demonic qi. It still retains its fiendish blood aura. Its power has not decreased much, it is still sharp. In the younger generation's arena competition, the first prize is this Scarlet Demon sword." Han Tingyi pointed to the secret box and said, "This is a secret box that my forgotten sword hut obtained after attacking the Kunlun devil cult. It was found in the Kunlun devil cult's martial arts library. Inside is a set of demonic path martial arts Great Devil Blood Technique and Blood Transformation Divine Blade. The combination of the two is at the 7th rank. But the people who came to participate in the World Sword Sect Conference are all righteous path people. So my forgotten sword hut temporarily sealed the incomparably evil Great Devil Blood Technique. Inside is only the Blood Transformation Divine Blade. It can be used as a trump card at a critical moment. It is the prize for the 2nd place. The last bottle of pills contains the Kunlun Devil Cult secret pill. Withered would give spring pill. It is refined from the Kunlun Devil Cult's rootless sacred flame. It is a holy healing medicine. It is the prize for the 3rd place." After Han Tingyi finished introducing these things, Chu Xiu did not feel anything. But he knew that Mr. Lu and the other Kunlun Devil Cult martial artists hiding in the dark probably wanted to swallow Han Tingyi alive. Han Tingyi or the entire 5 great sword sects were simply provoking the people of the hidden devil cult. The top 3 prizes they took out were all seized from the hands of the Kunlun devil cult in the past. In other words, these were all spoils of war, but they were the shame of the Kunlun devil cult. Now they took out these things as rewards. If this wasn't provocation, then what was? However, Mr. Lu and the others naturally wouldn't act up now, because the bigger provocation was yet to come. The expression on Han Tingyi's face did not change. He pointed at the last item wrapped in red cloth and said in a deep voice, "Martial Dao masters don't care about these small things, so we only prepared one reward for the winner. That is the symbol of the Kunlun devil cult in the past, which is also the symbol of the orthodox demonic path, the demonic creation flag." As soon as Han Ting lifted the red cloth, a powerful demonic aura instantly soared into the sky. It was so terrifying that it seemed to cover the sky and cover the sun. There should be a formation set up on the red cloth. Otherwise, it would be impossible to suppress such a powerful aura. Everyone focused their eyes and saw that under the red cloth was a tattered flag. As Han Ting raised the flag, everyone could clearly see the true appearance of the flag. The flag was only about 30 feet tall, and the flagpole was pitch black in color. There were sword scars on it, and it looked incomparably ancient. While the body of the flag could still flutter in the wind, it was extremely damaged as though it could shatter at any moment. Originally, the body of the flag should have been pitch black in color, with all kinds of mysterious seal scripts and diagrams drawn on it with golden patterns. But now, not a single complete seal could be seen. Everyone present had strange expressions. This was the symbol of the former demonic path, the demonic creation flag that represented the orthodox demonic path. The martial Dao grandmasters from the large sects all knew what the 5 great sword sects meant this time. Seeing that they really took out the demonic creation flag, the 5 great sword sects were really determined to suppress the demonic path. The other wandering cultivators stared with all their might. This was the demonic creation flag that represented the former Kunlun devil cult. It was a legendary existence. If they took a few more glances, they would have something to brag about in the future. As for sects like the Ba Mountain Sword sect, they were unperturbed and did not move at all. The demonic creation flag was of no use to them at all. Instead, it was a hot potato. They would not want it even if it was given to them. In the present world, only existences like the 5 great sword sects or the Buddhist and Taoist sects could keep the demonic creation flag. If it was left in the hands of others, they would be attacked by a large group of demonic cultivators the next day and torn to pieces. Because the arena in the center of the practice field was very large, it was divided into 10 parts by the people of the sword hut. It could accommodate 10 groups of people to compete at the same time. In the Sword Sect Conference of the World, the arena competition was just an accessory, especially since the 5 great sword sects had held this Sword Sect Conference with a different goal this time. So the rules were not so strict. Anyone who wanted to go on stage could sign up and start competing at will. They could also challenge each other. But after each round of challenge, the challenged person had the right to rest for a round and recover their strength. This could prevent people from taking turns to fight and deliberately tricking one person. The last rule was newly set by the Sword Sect Conference of the World. In the past, this kind of thing would not happen because the people who participated were warriors from the 5 great sword sects. For them, if anyone dared to play such underhanded tricks in the arena, they would lose their reputation. But this time, there were many outsiders participating in the Sword Sect Conference of the World. It was somewhat out of control, so the 5 great sword sects could only add some new rules to control it. Xiao Lu stood beside Chu Xiao and asked, "Brother Chu, are you going to participate in the arena?" Among the other sects, those who represented their sects to participate in the Sword Sect Conference of the World were definitely warriors at the unity of the world realm. The core strength of the sects were almost all not young, so they naturally could not go on stage to compete. But Chu Xiao was an exception. He came to represent the Guanzhong torture room, but his age was that of a warrior of the younger generation, so he naturally had the right to go on stage. Chu Xiao nodded and said, "Why wouldn't I want the benefits that are delivered to my doorstep? I can also train my own strength at the same time." "Brother Chu, you use a saber. You also have your eyes on the scarlet demon sword?" Chu Xiao shook his head and said, "Of course not. I only want the blood-dissipating saber. I don't have any extravagant hopes of being number 1. You have also seen that fellow Feng Qi Xiao. Although he is a little unreliable, his cultivation in the way of the sword can be said to be terrifying. Furthermore, Feng Qi Xiao has already stepped into the unity of the world realm. Although I have killed more than 1 or 2 warriors of this realm, compared to Feng Qi Xiao, the difference between these people is simply like the difference between clouds and mud. If we don't fight to the death, the current me is not sure that I can beat Feng Qi Xiao. But to be a little arrogant, besides Feng Qi Xiao, among the younger generation of warriors here, who is qualified to fight with me?" Xiao Lu thought about it and it really made sense. If Chu Xiao wanted to fight for first place, it might be a little difficult to fight with Feng Qi Xiao, but if he wanted to fight for second place, it would be even easier than Feng Qi Xiao fighting for first place, because no one dared to fight with Chu Xiao. The arenas in all directions opened at the same time, and those who wanted to participate in the arena or challenge could directly enter the arena to start the competition. The 5 martial Dao grandmasters of the 5 major sword sects stood on the high ground. On the surface, they were protecting the warriors who participated in the arena, but they were secretly monitoring to see if those demonic rats would secretly attack them. On the arena of the martial arts field, the 10 groups of people were fighting in full swing. They had been changed back and forth several times, but those who could still stay in the arena were almost all famous heroes of the younger generation. After Chu Xiao entered the arena, he went through 3 rounds. In fact, in these 3 rounds, Chu Xiao did not even fight. The people in those 3 rounds happened to be people of Eastern Qi. After knowing the identity of Chu Xiao, they directly turned around and fled. In the land of Eastern Qi, Chu Xiao was quite famous. Basically, there were only 2 outcomes for those who had anything to do with Chu Xiao. One was to die, and the other was to live a life worse than death. In the arena, Chu Xiao was relatively dazzling. Almost all of his opponents were defeated without a fight. This made the warriors of West Chu and Northern Yan feel a little strange. Weren't the warriors of Eastern Qi a little too cowardly? They didn't even fight and they withdrew? It should be known that this was the arena of the World Sword Sect Conference. Everyone came with the intention of learning from each other. Generally, they would not fight to the death. Fighting was just to hone their own strength. What were they afraid of? In fact, the warriors of Eastern Qi were indeed a little frightened by Chu Xiu's behavior. Those who went against him were basically dead or crippled. Although they also knew that this was the World Sword Sect Conference and Chu Xiu did not dare to go too far, no one was willing to guarantee it with their lives. Looking at the other young martial artists who were on the Dragon and Tiger list, they seemed to be fighting quite well. Although the seventh young Master Feng was somewhat unreliable, he was not ruthless in his attacks. Almost none of the warriors who had fought with him had been able to withstand more than 3 strikes from him. However, at the same time, his opponents had also benefited greatly. When the others saw that Feng Qixiao did not kill them, they all gathered at Feng Qixiao's side, wanting to take the opportunity to fight with him to learn a few moves. Later, Feng Qixiao also felt annoyed. He directly erupted with his strongest strength and defeated his opponent with 1 move. It was simple and easy, so the other warriors could not see anything. Only then did the disappointed crowd change their direction. In addition to Feng Qixiao, Nie Dongliu's performance was also very exciting. Nie Donglu had already practiced the Nie family's Heaven and Earth Cloud hand to an extremely proficient level. Later, he followed Han Baxian to practice fist martial arts. His strength was even better than before. There were few warriors who could withstand more than 3 moves from him. However, Feng Qixiao could not be bothered to give pointers to the warriors who fought with him. On the other hand, Nie Donglu patiently gave pointers to every warrior who fought with him and lost to him, earning him a good reputation. In addition to Chu Xiu and the others, Yunu Palace's Yan Fian, Xie Xiaolu and the others on the arena also performed very well. As long as one was on the Longhu list, when facing ordinary warriors of the same level, they had a huge advantage. But now when some people saw Chu Xiu's glorious appearance, they felt extremely unbalanced. Chapter 386. Looking at Chu Xiu's prowess in the arena, the one who was mentally unbalanced was Xiahou Wujiang. This time, he also followed his father, Xiahou Zhan, to participate in the World Sword Sect Conference. Xiahou Zhan brought Xiahou Wujiang here to let him see the world and increase his seniority. According to Xiahou Zhan, in the future, the Xiahou clan would definitely be handed over to Xiahou Wujiang, and their branch must be reappointed as the family head. The death of 7th uncle last time was a huge blow to Xiahou Wujiang, even more than when Chana was killed by Chu Xiu. Chana was just a maid of Xiahou Wujiang. To put it bluntly, she was just one of his many women. Now that one of them died, Xiahou Wujiang didn't feel any pain, only anger. But 7th uncle was an elder who watched him grow up, and was also one of Xiahou Zhan's confidants. Now that he died because of him, this blow was extraordinarily heavy for Xiahou Wujiang. Therefore, since the last time, Xiahou Wujiang changed his habits and became somewhat taciturn. He actually took the initiative to ask for no hardship cultivation, which made Xiahou Zhan feel somewhat gratified. At least his son could still be saved. Because Chu Xiu was between the Northern Yan and West Chu people, he didn't see anyone from Eastern Qi's side, so Xiahou Wujiang and Chu Xiu didn't meet. But at this time, Xiahou Wujiang saw that Chu Xiu was so glorious on the arena, almost subduing the enemy without a fight, which made Xiahou Wujiang feel extremely unbalanced. Xiahou Zhan felt that Xiahou Wujiang was strange, and he said indifferently, "What? Not convinced? The people of Jianghu can take and let go. Chu Xiu has the strength, so he has the qualifications to be glorious now. Don't forget what old Seven told you before, don't provoke Chu Xiu without absolute certainty. Now is not the time to touch Chu Xiu. The strength of the Guanzhong torture room isn't weak, but it has been hiding and keeping a low profile all these years, so it hasn't been noticed by others. The last time I lost to Guan Siyu, it was my miscalculation. Guan Siyu is even about to break through to the true fire soul refinement realm. With the protection of the Guanzhong torture room, unless I could seize the power of the Xiahou family and completely control it, I wouldn't be able to suppress the Guanzhong torture room with my current power. I'm still going to say the same thing. You can take it easy and let it go. There's no rush to take revenge now. You have to look forward and not be obsessed with this little grudge." Xiahou Wujiang looked coldly at Chu Xiu in the arena, nodded and said, "I know, father. I won't go into the arena this time." Although Xiahou Wujiang deeply hated Chu Xiu, He also knew his own capabilities. At this time, he didn't have the confidence to challenge Chu Xiao in the arena, and he also didn't have the confidence to face Yan Fian of the Yunu Palace. It could only be said that he had a 50-50 chance. There was also that Nye Donglu. Although most people in the Zhonghu knew that Nye Donglu was a scheming person, and his methods were more famous than his strength, Nye Donglu had been in seclusion for 2 years, and he had even become the disciple of the northern Yan Zhonghu's tyrant, Han Baxian. Xiahou Wujiang also didn't have the confidence to defeat him. As for facing Feng Qishao, he didn't even have the confidence to block 3 of Feng Qishao's swords. The two of them weren't existences of the same realm and level at all. The arena competition of the World Sword Sect Conference was just a spar. Although it wasn't that serious, there were still so many people watching. With Xiahou Wujiang's status, if he didn't have the confidence to enter the top 3, then he should forget it. He would only be humiliating himself if he went up. However, Xiahou Wujiang wasn't willing to just watch Chu Xiao continue to show off here. He coldly snorted, stood up, and walked towards the northern Yan side. Xiahou Zhan frowned and said, "What are you going to do? Didn't you hear what I said just now?" Xiahou Wujiang said in a deep voice, "Father, don't worry. I won't go up to the arena to compete with Chu Xiao. It's just that I don't want Chu Xiao to win too easily. I believe that many people will be happy to see this happen." Hearing Xiahou Wujiang say this, Xiahou Zhan thought about it and didn't continue to say anything. He only hoped that Xiahou Wujiang could be more steady. However, if he was too steady, steadiness would become timidity. This wasn't a good thing, so Xiahou Zhan didn't stop him. Xiahou Wujiang walked straight to the northern Yan side and arrived in front of the monks from the Great Light Temple. With a smile on his face, he cupped his hands and said, "Xiahou Wujiang greets the masters." Su Yan glanced at Xiahou Wujiang, put his palms together, and returned the greeting. "So it's the young master of the Xiahou clan. You're too polite." The Great Light Temple was far away in the northern Yan, while the Xiahou clan was in eastern Qi. The two sides actually didn't have much contact. However, the Xiahou clan was one of the 9 great families, and it was the kind that ranked at the top. Su Yan would still give Xiahou Wujiang face. "I wonder what young Master Xiahou is here for?" Su Yan asked directly. He was a martial arts grandmaster level powerhouse, the Vajra Institution's master. He naturally wasn't willing to play any tricks with a junior martial artist like Xiahou Wujiang. It would be more appropriate if it was Xiahou Zhan instead. Xiahou Wujiang pointed at Chu Xiao on the arena and said in a clear voice, "Masters, back in the sky-reaching tower, when Chu Xiao tortured and killed your temple's great master Ming Chen, I was also present. Chu Xiao's attack was ruthless and decisive. Although I didn't have any friendship with Great Master Ming Chen, I still admired the reputation of the Great Light Temple's masters. I wanted to stop him, but it was too late, and Great Master Ming Chen was killed. During the sky-reaching tower battle, an elder who had taken care of me since I was young also died at the hands of Chu Xiao. However, I deeply hate myself for being useless and not being able to avenge my 7th uncle. Even if my father made a move, he was defeated by Guan Siyu of the Guanzhong torture room. This time, the masters have brought so many masters to the World Sword Sect Conference. I believe that Great Master Ming Chen definitely won't die in vain. The masters will definitely not let Chu Xiao continue to be so arrogant." As soon as Xiahou Wujiang said this, the Great Light Temple's martial artists immediately became excited. Moreover, Xiahou Wujiang's voice was not soft. The surrounding people also heard Xiahou Wujiang's words and looked at the people from the Great Light Temple. Looking at Xiahou Wujiang, Su Yan's expression immediately became gloomy. He never thought that this junior from the Xiahou clan would dare to provoke the Great Light Temple. Originally, the Great Light Temple was not prepared to make a move at the World Sword Sect Conference. However, with Xiahou Wujiang's provocation, the disciples who had previously quietened down became excited again. Moreover, Xiahou Wujiang's words were also secretly hinting to the others that the Great Light Temple would not dare to make a move against Chu Xiao. Similarly, their own people had died at the hands of Chu Xiao, but their Xiahou clan dared to go to the Guanzhong torture room to demand justice. Even if Xiahou Zhan was defeated by Guan Siyu in the end, at least their Xiahou clan dared to make a move and would not disappoint their own people. However, in contrast to the people from the Great Light Temple, they did not make a move. In this way, the Great Light Temple indeed appeared somewhat cold. Of course, no one would say that the Great Light Temple was too weak. The Kunlun devil cult had been destroyed. In this world, no one could make the Great Light Temple retreat. However, the surrounding martial artists looked at Su Yan and the others somewhat differently. Their own disciples had been killed, and the enemy was right in front of them. Regardless of whether they could kill the other party, it was normal for them to at least show some expression. However, the Great Light Temple turned a blind eye to it. This group of monks was truly cold. Su Yan looked coldly at Xiahou Wujiang and said in a low voice, "How dare you?" Xiahou Wujiang smiled and said, "Master Su Yan is too serious. I was just speaking the truth. I have no intention of harming the Great Light Temple." At this time, Su Du, who had not spoken all this while, put away his lazy expression. His expression was frighteningly gloomy. An aura erupted from his body, pressing down on Xiahou Wujiang's body like a mountain. It immediately caused him to break out in a cold sweat, and he could not help but want to kneel down. However, Xiahou Wujiang was forcefully holding on at this time. If he were to kneel down in front of everyone, he would lose a lot of face. However, the coercion of a martial Dao grandmaster was not so easy to resist. Xiahou Wujiang had unleashed all of his strength, but he still could not resist Shudu's coercion. Even the bones all over his body were creaking. Just as Xiahou Wujiang was about to be unable to resist, a golden light enveloped his body, cancelling out Su Du's pressure. Xiahou Zhan appeared beside Xiahou Wujiang at some point. He cupped his hands at Su Du and Su Yan and said, "I have not taught my son well and have offended the two masters. Please forgive me." Su Du put away his pressure and snorted coldly. "Xiahou Zhan, it is not that you have not taught your son well. You have taught a good son. These little tricks are quite smooth. Just like you when you were young. However, did you not teach him that playing these little tricks also depends on the person? This is the World Sword Sect Conference, and I am giving face to the 5 major sword sections. Otherwise, believe it or not, I will twist his head off." Being ridiculed by Su Du, Xiahou Zhan still had a smile on his face. Master Su Du is right. This kind of thing will not happen again. After saying that, Xiahou Zhan directly grabbed Xiahou Wujiang and left. The smile on his face also became extremely gloomy at that moment. Returning to the Xiahou clan's side, Xiahou Zhan snorted coldly. "You want to scheme against Chu Xiu? Fine, but who asked you to provoke the Great Light Temple? Are you looking for death?" Xiahou Wujiang wiped the cold sweat off his head and said with a smile, "Father, don't worry. I know what I'm doing. I just provoked a little, not harming the Great Light Temple. Even if they are angry, what can they do? The Great Light Temple is far away in the northern Yan and has no direct relationship with the Xiahou clan. They cannot threaten the interests of the Xiahou clan. Moreover, this is the World Sword Sect Conference, and I am a junior. At most, the other party will just teach me a lesson. Using a lesson in exchange for the Great Light Temple finding trouble with Chu Xiu, this is a very good deal." In fact, Xiahou Wujiang had always been very clear in his heart. Since he dared to provoke the Great Light Temple, then he must have thought of the consequences beforehand. However, Xiahou Zhan sneered. "Good deal? If you want to provoke, you also have to look at the target. Do you really think that Su Du saying that he would twist your head off was said in a moment of anger? If I wasn't here today, if you said anything more, Su Du would really dare to disregard the Xiahou clan's face and twist your head off." Chapter 387. Xiahou Zhan's words made Xiahou Wujiang look stunned. It was a big taboo for a senior martial artist to attack a junior martial artist. Even when Xiahou Zhan went to the Guanzhong torture room to ask for Su Du, it was all under the excuse of seeking justice for 7th uncle. He did not believe that Su Du, the head of the Shaolin Temple's Kongji Zen Hall and a well-known martial Dao grandmaster, would openly attack a junior martial artist like him. Xiahou Zhan sneered. "You juniors don't even understand the matters of the underworld. What kind of people don't exist in the underworld? Some people follow the rules, but some people don't. Su Du is the head of the Kongji Zen Hall, but do you know what his nickname was in the past? Monk Sanfeng. This guy was powerful and talented. Among the Su generation in the Shaolin Temple, in terms of talent, he was second only to the abbot Su Ci and the head of the Wangyan Zen Hall, Su Yun. However, this monk was an out-and-out lunatic. He had once gone crazy 3 times a day, and no one could stop him. He had even dared to point at the nose of the previous abbot and curse 18 generations of his ancestors. He had almost been expelled from the Temple of Great Light. After Su Ci took charge of the Great Light Temple, Su Du became much more well-behaved. Although he was the head of the Kongji Zen Hall, he did not care about the matters of the Kongji Zen Hall. With this guy's personality, do you think he was joking when he said he would break your head? He even dared to curse the previous abbot. What else would he not dare to do? Remember, you must not provoke this kind of madman. He is not an existence that can be measured with common sense. Xiahou Wujiang nodded, but he was also covered in cold sweat. It was better to be careful when playing tricks with a martial Dao grandmaster. Otherwise, it was easy to die without even knowing how. But Xiahou Wujiang did not regret it, because his words had worked. On the Great Light Temple's side, Xiahou Wujiang's provocation naturally could not be hidden from Su Du and Su Yan. The two of them did not care, but the other younger disciples of the Great Light Temple exploded. The Great Light Temple was the leader of the North Buddhist sect. As a Buddhist sect, although they were not too overbearing when dealing with other sects, they would not allow others to humiliate them. Just like what Xiahou Wujiang had said, allowing Chu Xiu to strut around in the arena was an insult to the Great Light Temple, and it also disappointed their disciples. Therefore, a martial artist in his 30s, who was from the Ming generation, ignored Su Yan's advice and walked into the ring, shouting, "Disciple of the Temple of Great Light, Ming Cheng, challenges the Guanzhong torture room's Chu Xiu." As soon as he said that, everyone present was stunned and turned to look at Chu Xiu and Ming Cheng. Although there was a challenge mechanism in the arena of the World Sword Sect Conference, a few rounds had already passed and no one had taken the initiative to challenge anyone. The World Sword Sect meets arena is not intense. Most of them are just sparring. Looking at the few people in the arena, it was obvious that Feng Qishao had no intention to fight at all. He was just doing his job. Yan Fian was the same. Because she was a disciple of the Yu Palace, she wanted to win a good ranking for the Yu Palace. Nie Donglu even used the opportunity of the arena to buy people's hearts. The time he spent giving pointers to his opponents was longer than the time he spent fighting with them. As for Chu Xiu, the great battle between the righteous and demonic paths was about to begin. He was prepared to reap some benefits before it began, so he did not have any intention to fight. Therefore, things like challenging a specific person did not happen. The World Sword Sect meet was not a place to settle grudges. However, now that Ming Qing had taken the initiative to challenge, this situation was broken. Everyone could see that Ming Qing's aggressive manner was not a good one. Su Yan frowned and immediately wanted to stop him, but he was stopped by Su Du. Su Du said lazily, "That kid has already stood out. What's the use of stopping him? Fight, it's better to let them go. This bunch of kids are angry. If you don't let them fight, who knows, they might even secretly attack later." Su Yan frowned and said, "But what if something goes wrong? Chu Xiu is famous for being ruthless and decisive. Also, I promised senior brother Su Yun that I would not pursue this matter anymore." Su Du's expression turned serious, which was rare. He stared at Su Yan and said, "Junior brother, after being in charge of the Vajra institution for so many years, your Vajra temper has been worn away. Have you forgotten the rules of the pugilistic world? In the pugilistic world, either you are beaten to death by others, or you can only beat others to death. If you don't have the strength, then don't stand out. Can you protect them for a lifetime? Although you and I have shaved our tongues and become monks, the Great Light Temple itself is in the pugilistic world. Some rules will not change. If these junior martial artists want to fight, just let them go. Life and death are up to fate. At least your spirit is still there." Su Yan hesitated and said, "Then what about senior brother Su Yun?" Su Du instantly regained his lazy attitude and said calmly, "Go and explain. I don't want to deal with him." Looking at Su Du, Su Yan was speechless. However, he did not stop those disciples. There were martial arts masters from the 5 major sword sects around. Although he could not guarantee the absolute safety of the Great Light Temple's disciples, he could at least guarantee their lives. Since they wanted to go, then he would let them go. At that moment, on the arena, Han Tingyi frowned slightly. However, he did not say much. Instead, he asked Chu Xiu directly, "Do you accept the challenge from the Great Light Temple's Ming Qing?" The arena of the World Sword Sect Conference was not that intense. Although one could challenge, the challenger had to accept it first. Chu Xiao looked at the Great Light Temple and Xiahou clan's side, and a cold look flashed in his eyes. Because of Chu Xiao's previous fierce reputation, his opponents immediately surrendered when it was his turn. Chu Xiao could only stand on the arena and wait for the next round. He saw Xiahou Wujiang's actions when he came to look for the Great Light Temple. However, because he was too far away, he did not hear clearly what the other party said. However, when Xiahou Wujiang just left, someone from the Great Light Temple came to challenge him. Clearly, Xiahou Wujiang did not say anything nice. Thinking of this, Chu Xiao could not help but reveal waves of murderous intent in his eyes. Xiahou Wujiang was like a fly, always trying to find some trouble for him. Although it wasn't too big and couldn't threaten his life, it was still very annoying. Therefore, Chu Xiao already had a plan in mind. If there were no problems, even if he, Xiahou Wujiang, did not go on the arena, he would not be able to walk out of this floating jade mountain. Seeing that Chu Xiao did not speak, Han Tingyi coughed and added, "The World Sword Sect Conference is only for exchanging pointers. It's fine if you don't want to accept the challenge. Just wait for the next round." The 5 major sword sects only wanted to lure the demonic sects to attack this time. As for other matters, it was better to avoid trouble. It was best if Chu Xiao did not agree, otherwise, it would be troublesome if he caused any trouble. However, Chu Xiao grinned and said, "Since the Great Light Temple wants to fight, I naturally can't be a wet blanket, right? I accept." As soon as this was said, most of the warriors present immediately looked at Chu Xiao. The other matches were too boring. There was no sense of urgency of fighting in the arena. Now, there was finally something exciting. This also made the warriors present excited. Mingqing walked onto the arena with a cold expression. His aura gradually solidified, and a faint golden aura bloomed around him. The pressure was actually infinitely close to the unity of heaven and man realm. The disciples of the Great Light Temple had always been low-key. This was publicly acknowledged in the pugilistic world. Mingqing was a disciple of the Vajra institution. He was of the same generation as Mingchen, who died in the hands of Chu Xiao. However, he was younger than Mingchen, and his strength was also superior. Normally, a disciple of Mingqing's level could be nurtured as a future successor in other sections. However, in the Great Light Temple, Mingqing was not considered ordinary, but he could only be considered an ordinary elite disciple. There were not many disciples like this in the Great Light Temple, but they were not few either. The 3 major Zen halls and the 6 major martial institutions could find more than a dozen of them. Therefore, even though Mingqing could only be said to be a nobody in the pugilistic world and had not even been on the Longhu leaderboard, his strength was not inferior to the elites on the leaderboard. It was just that he was slightly older. Looking at the murderous Mingqing and the indifferent Chu Xiao, Han Tingyi shook his head helplessly and said, "Since both of you are willing, then make your move. However, let me reiterate that the arena of the World Sword Sect Conference is only used for sparring, not for you to kill each other and settle your grudges. You must remember this. Otherwise, if things get out of hand, it won't look good for anyone." Chu Xiao smiled and nodded. "Senior Han, don't worry. I'm familiar with the rules of the arena competition. Nothing will go wrong." When Chu Xiao said this, the martial artists from West Chu and Northern Yan did not feel anything. However, the martial artists from Eastern Qi, especially those who had participated in the God Weapon Conference, all had strange expressions on their faces. They did not forget that when Chu Xiao had participated in the God Weapon Conference in Eastern Qi, Chang Tingfeng of the Hidden Sword Villa had intercepted him and prevented him from killing Shen Bai. However, Chu Xiao had still dared to cripple Shen Bai under the pressure of a martial arts master. His guts were not ordinary. Now, Chu Xiao said that he was familiar with the rules of the arena. Familiar with what? Familiar with how to kill someone under the nose of a martial arts master? However, Han Tingyi did not know about this. He was a martial arts master, so of course, he would not care about the messy matters between the younger martial artists. Hearing this, Han Tingyi only nodded and said, "If that's the case, then do it." With that, Mingqing was just about to point at Chu Xiao and say something when he saw Chu Xiao wave his hand and say, "Cut the crap. I originally thought that the Great Light Temple would keep its promise and let this matter go, but who would have thought that you monks would go back on your word? If that's the case, what else is there to say? I just hope that you won't regret it in the end." Chapter 388. Chu Xiu's words caused Mingqing to swallow back all the words he wanted to say. Actually, at this point it was meaningless to say who was right and who was wrong. Chu Xiu's style was to kill whoever wanted to kill him. It was that simple and direct. As for Mingqing, his senior brother had been killed, but they were forced by the elders of the sect not to take revenge. This made him feel very aggrieved, and he could not help but want to make a move. Mingqing took back what he wanted to say. He only snorted and said, "My great light temple does not go back on our words. It was my personal decision to challenge you in the arena. It has nothing to do with the Great Light Temple. Moreover, this is the World Sword Sect Conference. I just want to challenge you. What can't I?" Chu Xiu shook his head and said, "What's the use of saying so many useless excuses? Just make a move. You monks are too straightforward. Be more straightforward. The winner will stand, and the loser will scram. It's that simple." Mingqing's eyes revealed a hint of anger and he snorted, "If you want to die, I'll grant your wish." As soon as he finished speaking, Mingqing's body flashed with dazzling golden gang qi. As it rotated, it was as if Vajra had descended to the world, burning with raging flames as he punched at Chu Xiu. The Great Light Temple had countless precious Buddhist secret scriptures. Among them, the most famous secret scripture of the Vajra department was the Furious Vajra Heart Sutra. This body-tempering technique could be said to be top-notch, but its only disadvantage was that it affected a warrior's state of mind too much. This also caused most of the warriors from the Vajra department to be hot-tempered and impulsive. Of course, if one could suppress the anger in one's heart, it was equivalent to completely mastering the true meaning of the Furious Vajra Heart Sutra. It was just like the current Vajra department's first seat. He was not so impulsive, and his personality became very rational. Regardless of whether it was Ming Chen who had died at the hands of Chu Xiu, or Ming Cheng, they had not reached this level, so they could not help but be rash and impulsive in their actions. However, this was not a big deal. In a real battle, the anger of the Heart Sutra of Furious Vajra would burn to the extreme, and its power would be extremely powerful. Just like now, Ming Cheng's punch shook the arena and made a series of explosions. Its power was comparable to that of a great master in the unity of heaven and man realm. Strictly speaking, Cheng was a martial art practitioner from the previous generation. It was just that he was relatively young, not even in his 40s. It was normal for him to be included in the younger generation of martial art practitioners. After all, the seniority in the Temple of Great Light had always been very messy. There were even martial art practitioners in the Su generation who were in their 20s. However, even though Ming Cheng was young, his cultivation was deep, and he was even stronger than Ming Chen of the past. As his fist descended, Buddhist light suppressed all evil and annihilated the devil. Its might was incomparably powerful. Chu Xiu's figure did not move. His hand formed the great Vajra wheel seal, and a similarly blinding Buddhist light exploded from his hand. It made Chu Xiu look like a Vajra that could subdue demons, and his might was incomparably powerful. Everyone present was stunned. Why did Chu Xiu's attainments in Buddhist techniques seem to be stronger than Ming Cheng's? The great Vajra wheel seal collided with Ming Cheng's fist, and an ear-piercing sonic boom was heard. If it were not for the matrix that the sword hut had prepared for the arena, the two's attacks would have been enough to shatter the entire arena. After the loud sonic boom, Chu Xiu's figure did not move, but Ming Cheng could not help but take a step back. His eyes were filled with shock. In the Northern Buddha sect's Temple of Great Light, Ming Cheng was proud of his own strength. In the end, he discovered that Chu Xiu's strength was even greater than his. Chu Xiu's expression did not change. He still formed the great Vajra wheel seal in his hand and struck out once again. Out of all of Chu Xiu's techniques, the great Vajra divine power was definitely not the strongest. However, for Chu Xiu at his current stage, it was the one that was the most helpful. The martial arts that Chu Xiu cultivated could be said to be extremely diverse. Before he had the great Vajra divine power, Chu Xiu's vital qi and mental energy were not weak. The only thing he was lacking was the strength of his physical body. This was the effect of the wooden bucket. The amount of water a bucket could hold depended on its shortest piece of wood. When Chu Xiu successfully made up for his shortest piece of wood, Chu Xiu was truly invulnerable. There was not a single flaw that could be picked out in any area. Furthermore, when he was cultivating the great Vajra divine power in seclusion, Chu Xiu had even refined half of the beast's heart. This caused Chu Xiu's strength to increase greatly. Even if he were to compete with the Great Light Temple's warriors in terms of strength, he still had the upper hand. When the second Great Vajra Wheel Seal landed, Ming Cheng gritted his teeth. The Vajra shadow behind him bloomed, and a powerful Buddhist light condensed into a swastika seal to forcefully resist Chu Xiu's Great Vajra Wheel Seal. Another loud boom was heard, and Ming Cheng immediately took another step back. Chu Xiu seemed to only know the Great Vajra Wheel Seal. No matter what Ming Cheng's attack looked like, he would land a Great Vajra Wheel Seal and force Ming Cheng to take a step back. After 9 consecutive Great Vajra Wheel Seals landed, Ming Cheng was forced to the edge of the arena. This caused everyone present to watch anxiously, wondering if Chu Xiu could completely crush and defeat Ming Cheng. Han Tingyi, who was standing on the high platform, nodded. At this moment, he could also see that Chu Xiu's strength was truly worthy of his ranking on the Longhu list. Whether it was his own strength or his control of martial arts techniques, he had already reached the peak of the 5 Chi's origin realm. Even warriors at the Unity of Heaven and Man realm were inferior to him in certain aspects. Basic strength, vital energy, and mental strength could be achieved through various external objects. Whether it was through seclusion, the guidance of a great teacher, or the consumption of various treasures, it was very easy to rapidly improve a warrior's realm. On the other hand, combat strength had to be improved through intense fighting, which was the most difficult aspect. Just when everyone, including Han Tingyi, thought that Chu Xiu would still use the Great Vajra Wheel Seal to blast Ming Cheng out of the arena, Chu Xiu's hand seal suddenly changed. This subtle change could not be noticed by others, but as a martial arts master, Han Tingyi immediately felt that something was wrong. However, it was already too late. The 5 rays of light in Chu Xiu's hand were connected from head to tail, rotating endlessly like the great sun wheel. It suddenly fell, and the power of the 5 elements reinforced and restrained each other, bursting out an unparalleled power. Sun Wheel Seal. No one present expected that Chu Xiu would suddenly change his hand seal in the middle of the battle. Even his opponent, Ming Cheng, did not expect this. Ming Cheng had taken 9 of Chu Xiu's Great Vajra Wheel Seals in a row. He already had a subconscious understanding of the changes in the power of the Great Vajra Wheel Seal, so he only used the martial arts technique that he was good at to resist. He was also prepared to be blasted out of the arena by Chu Xiu's seal, so he did not prepare to use his killing move. However, who would have thought that this time, Chu Xiu did not play according to the rules. Under the Sun Wheel Seal, Ming Cheng spat out a mouthful of blood, and his internal organs were shaken. He was directly blasted more than 30 meters away, smashed on the ground, and fainted. Everyone could see that under this attack, Ming Cheng would be seriously injured even if he did not die. Han Tingyi's expression changed, and he shouted angrily, "Chu Xiu! What are you doing? Didn't I tell you before that the arena of the World Sword Sect Conference is for you to exchange pointers, not for you to kill?" Chu Xiu shrugged innocently and said, "Senior Han, please understand. There are so many people watching here. I did not kill, and Ming Cheng is not dead yet. However, the martial artists of the Great Light Temple are very strong, so I could only use all my strength to attack. Swords have no eyes, fists and feet have no heart. Even if it is a careful sparring, isn't it normal to be injured or something? If there are restrictions, then there is no need to fight. Everyone can just sit down and talk." Han Tingyi snorted coldly. As a martial arts master, he naturally could not be calculative with a junior like Chu Xiu. Although everyone could see that Chu Xiu was quibbling, in terms of the rules, Chu Xiu really did not do anything wrong. Han Tingyi rubbed his head with a headache. It did not matter that Chu Xiu had seriously injured Ming Cheng, but the Great Light Temple was in an uproar. Seeing that Ming Cheng had been severely injured, the Great Light Temple's side became even more agitated. That group of disciples were so angry that they seemed to have lost their minds. Immediately, another warrior jumped out and said coldly, "Great Light Temple's Vajra Courtyard's Ming Yi challenges Guanzhong Torture Hall's Chu Xiu." Han Tingyi frowned and said to Chu Xiu, "You have won a round. According to the rules, you can stop for a round to recuperate. Are you going to use it now?" Chu Xiu shook his head and said, "There is no need. I am not afraid of taking turns." Hearing Chu Xiu say that, Han Tingyi did not say anything else and directly let the two of them fight. Since there was a first round, there would be a second round. He would just let them fight. Ming Yi walked onto the arena. He was slightly older than Ming Cheng, but his attacks were also more fierce. After going onto the arena, Ming Yi did not say anything. He held a Buddhist commandment blade in his hand and slashed at Chu Xiao. His Buddhist commandment blade bloomed with Buddha's light, but the saber's momentum was extremely ruthless. Killing evil and beheading demons, merciful Buddhist commandment blade. With a merciful heart, the saber's murderous intent was limitless. Chu Xiao closed his eyes slightly and the heavenly demon dance was already in his hand. He raised the long saber and the devil's qi and evil blood qi intertwined and condensed, bringing about a wave of extremely evil power. As the saber slashed down, the saber's momentum of the three sabers of Avicii condensed into one, and its power was terrifying. The people from the Great Light Temple wanted to find Chu Xiao for revenge, but Chu Xiao was using them to hone his own strength. When he was in the Guanzhong torture room, Chu Xiao cultivated the great Vajra divine power and refined half of the fierce beast's heart. His own realm could be considered to have increased greatly, which also caused a slight fluctuation in Chu Xiao's foundation. Although it was only a trace, Chu Xiao still had to hone it to a perfect realm. In such a situation, most warriors usually had two methods. One was to continue training in seclusion until they could completely control this power. The other was to hone one's foundation through fighting and killing. Obviously, Chu Xiao chose the latter. Chapter 389. There were no weaklings among the warriors from the Great Light Temple. This was common knowledge in the martial arts world. To put it simply, the Great Light Temple should be a sect with a very low bottom line. As long as it was a warrior from the Great Light Temple, his abilities would not be too weak. The Li family's housekeeper that Chu Xiao had met in Wei County was a cook from the Great Light Temple. He was just a cook, but his abilities were considered outstanding among the rogue cultivators. As for the warriors who came to participate in the World Sword Conference, although they were not at the level of Wisdom King Zhongxian, they were still the elite disciples of the Vajrayard. Otherwise, they would not have been brought by Su Yan to participate in the World Sword Conference. Opponents of this level were not weak. For Chu Xiao, they were good materials to train his own strength. At this moment, on the arena, Chu Xiao's Avicii demonic blade collided with Ming Yi's merciful breaking blade. A monstrous, turbulent demonic aura exploded and directly destroyed the Buddha's light blade. Moreover, this was not the end. Blood-colored astral energy erupted from Chu Xiao's heavenly demonic dance. The boundless killing intent brought about by the refined blood divine astral dance instantly enveloped Ming Yi. The saber aura enveloped him like a torrential downpour. After Ming Yi had slashed through the saber aura with great difficulty, a demonic saber that seemed to have been slashed out from hell, containing divinity, came crashing down. It directly shattered Ming Yi's saber, causing him to vomit blood as he was sent flying off the stage. Chu Xiao used the heavenly demon dance in his hand to point at the people from the Great Light Temple. He revealed a cold smile at the corner of his lips and said, "Next." As soon as he said this, everyone present was in an uproar. To provoke the Great Light Temple like this guy was simply too arrogant. The people from the Great Light Temple were even more in an uproar. A warrior did not even say his name and directly went up the arena to attack Chu Xiao. Everyone present shook their heads. They had seen arrogant people before, but they had never seen someone this arrogant. This Chu Xiao was practically offending the Great Light Temple to death. Could it be that the Guanzhong torture room was so arrogant now that it thought it was the Jianghu's torture chamber? However, they did not know that Chu Xiao dared to be so arrogant because he did not rely on Guanxiu, but rather the entire fiend path behind him. Chu Xiao represented the Yin demon sect, or even the entire hidden demon sect. Not to mention Xiahou Zhan, Su Yan and the others, even if the abbot of the Great Brightness Temple Su Ci were to come, there would naturally be those big shots of the demonic Tao who would help Chu Xiao. At this moment in the crowd below, Mr. Liu, who was disguised as the Pine Wave Sword Su Songtao, looked at the extremely arrogant Chu Xiao on the arena and transmitted his voice in a low voice. This kid is really arrogant. What is he planning to do? Using all the disciples of the Great Light Temple as a whetstone to train his own strength? However, Elder Wei, this kid is not like this usually. When he needs to be low-key, he will be low-key and ruthless. This time, he wants to show off in the arena? Beside Mr. Liu, A handsome young man in white with a jade-like face stood beside Mr. Lu with a folding fan in his hand. With a low and hoarse voice he said, "This kid is smart. He is the new talent of the hidden demon sect. Now that our fiend path has gathered the entire floating jade mountain, it would not be a problem for him to be 100 times more arrogant." The handsome young man standing beside Mr. Lu was Jade Face Heavenly Demon Wuxia. He had specially asked the people of the phaseless demon sect to help him disguise himself like this. In fact, this appearance was originally Wuxia's appearance when he was young. The 9 sky demons of the 5 sky demons were things that happened more than 200 years ago. Now, Wuxia was not afraid of being recognized. Although Wuxia previously said that his face was full of wrinkles and that he was no longer the Jade Face Heavenly Demon, now that it was time to disguise himself, he took the initiative to ask the people of the phaseless demon sect to disguise himself to look young. His words did not match his heart. This almost made the martial artist of the phaseless demon sect laugh out loud. Of course, in the end, the martial artist held back. Otherwise, this elder Wei's temper would not be so good. At this time, hearing Wuxia say this, Mr. Lu also heaved a sigh of relief. On the surface, Chu Xiu's identity was a rising star of the demon Dao. However, he was also a person that he and Mei Qinglian had their eyes on at the same time. He represented the Yin demon sect and their phaseless demon sect. In the future, if Chu Xiu became famous in the hidden demon sect, he would naturally be considered as their ally. Therefore, when Chu Xiu stepped onto the arena, Mr. Lu told Wuxia about Chu Xiu's identity in the underworld. This was to let this veteran of the demon Dao recognize Chu Xiu as well and gain his favor. Wuxia was an experienced person, and he could see through Mr. Lu's thoughts at a glance. He could not help but smile and say, "Don't worry. I said before, this kid is very smart. Moreover, being arrogant is not a bad thing. As a wanderer in the underworld, he should be proud and impassioned. If a person is not arrogant when he is young, he has no future. However, if he is still arrogant when he is middle-aged, then he has no future. When I was young, I was much more arrogant than that kid. My Inma clan doesn't have to hide in the dark like a mouse and wear out our spirit. It's not bad to be like this kid." A hint of joy appeared in Mr. Lu's eyes. In the demon Dao, there were not many people that Wuxia would say were not bad. It was not easy for Chu Xiu to get such an evaluation. Although this old man was not young anymore, he was still alone and did not even have a disciple or a servant. However, in the hidden devil clan, he was one of the 5 great sky demons of the 9th heaven mountain. This qualification was enough for him to be at the top of the devil path. Moreover, although the demon Dao alliance created by the 5 sky demons of the 9 heavens mountain was killed, there were many survivors. Those who were able to survive that battle were all strong cultivators in the demon Dao. Their development in the demon Dao was not weak. Now that Wuxia had raised his arm and called for help, not all of the disciples of those people were willing to go through fire and water for Wuxia. At that moment, in the arena, Chu Xiu had already consecutively defeated several Great Light Temple's ancient martial art practitioners within a short period of time. Furthermore, it was a battle of attrition. It was a completely crushing aura, directly causing the Great Light Temple's ancient martial art practitioners to be terrified. Not a single one of them could withstand more than 10 moves from Chu Xiu. In the end, although there were still a few people from the Great Light Temple who had not entered the arena, they did not jump out to challenge anymore. Instead, they all lowered their heads and looked angry and humiliated. The remaining few people were weaker than the previous people. Their strongest senior brothers had been defeated. What else could they use to fight? Moreover, because it was a continuous battle, Chu Xiu seemed to have consumed a lot of his inner strength and vital qi. If they persisted, they might have a chance. However, they did not choose to make a move. The reason was simple. The ancient martial art practitioners from the Great Light Temple still cared about their reputation. Since they could not defeat Chu Xiu head-on, even if they could defeat him in a continuous battle, the people of the Jianghu would say that the Great Light Temple was bullying him with numbers. They did not want to do something so embarrassing. Therefore, they could only stand there and not dare to make a move. Looking at the disciples' sullen expressions, Su Du mocked them before Su Yan could say anything. "I say, you juniors are really something. Can't you take a blow?" No matter what, Chu Xiu is 6th on the Longhu leaderboard. Do you really think that the leaderboard that Wind Sweeping Tower created is a joke? If he could be defeated so easily by you, Wouldn't the Great Light Temple be able to claim the top 10 of the Longhu leaderboard? Su Du pointed at Su Yan beside him and said, "If you are not convinced, there is still a chance. When you have cultivated to the level of your sect's first seat, you can go and seek revenge on Chu Xiu." Su Yan, who was beside him, nodded. It was not easy for Su Du to say something sensible this time. However, at that moment Su Du added, "However, your sect's first seat's abilities are not that great. It will be quite difficult for him to seek revenge when he has cultivated to his level." Su Yan immediately glared at Su Du. However, Su Du turned his head to the side as if he did not see it. The Great Light Temple did not dare to make another move after being beaten up by Chu Xiu. Everyone present had seen Chu Xiu's might. Even those who had a grudge against Chu Xiu did not dare to show up at that moment. At that moment, on the other side, there were only 4 people left. They were Feng Qishao, Chu Xiu, Nie Donglu, and Yan Fian. A duel was a very simple matter. However, 7th young Master Feng looked at Yan Fian opposite him. He shrugged his shoulders helplessly and said, "Miss Yan, why don't you just admit defeat? I don't hit women, especially when you are so beautiful and I am so handsome. If the two of us were to fight fiercely here, wouldn't it be a bit of a wet blanket? Why don't you admit defeat and I will treat you to a meal after this? The Yu Maiden Palace is far away in Wuxia, so you definitely have not tasted the delicacies of the Western region. When we come to the Western region, I will treat you to roasted lamb legs and lamb chops. Oh yes, there will also be good lamb kidneys. That is a great tonic. Last time, I went to a small tribe to rob. Ah no, I borrowed a few holy sheep that were fed with elixirs. The taste was not ordinary. Everyone present was speechless. This Feng Qishao was really not an ordinary person. Treating Cloud Sword Fairy Yan Fian to eat lamb kidneys? Only Feng Qishao could think of such a showy move. The warrior at the Unity of Heaven and Man realm from Sword King City covered his face in pain. He felt that Sword King City's face had been thrown away by Feng Qishao. If it was not for Feng Qishao's unparalleled talent in swordsmanship, he would have been hung on the city tower as a sacrifice several times by the people of Sword King City. On the opposite side, Yan Fian raised her delicate eyebrows. As an outstanding disciple of the 5 major sword sects, she understood Feng Qishao. She knew that he was such a person, so she did not talk nonsense with Feng Qishao. She raised the Yu Maiden sword in her hand and rushed forward. She knew that she was not a match for Feng Qishao, but as a swordsman, she could not take the initiative to admit defeat. The Yu Maiden Palace would not allow her to do so. You're tuning in to the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.